The antagonist.
You are done.
A character, group, or force that stands in direct opposition to the protagonist. They create the central conflict of the story and drive the plot forward by challenging the hero's goals, beliefs, or desires. A good antagonist can either make or break a story. A bad antagonist can be for many reasons: too generic, not fleshed out enough, or just being plain boring. This can cause an otherwise good game to be a bit meh, or a bad game to be awful to play. But what about when you have a good one? A good antagonist can make an otherwise very simple, bland game something truly special. And in my eyes, no game series embodies this idea more than Far Cry.
What the definition of insanity is.
The modern Far Cry games, or Far Cry 3, 3.2, 3.4, so on and so forth, are, for lack of a better word, a bit safe. Since 3, the games mechanically and gameplay wise have never truly evolved. But I can't lie, they are my junk food games. I love the Far Cry games, despite how basic a lot of the new ones are. They're like having a cheeky Mackies. They're easy to eat, they're not that complex, but they aren't great food. They're just simple. But hidden within each Far Cry game, well, most of them, mainly the earlier ones that aren't that new, are some of the best and most entertaining villains within gaming. Ones which might have only had 15 minutes of screen time, but their impact is so immense that they have been felt throughout all of not only gaming media, but other mediums as well. I would love to talk about Far Cry 3, and I absolutely love Far Cry 3. I love Vaas and Michael Mando's performance as him, and while I do think it is the best modern Far Cry game, maybe, I think it's in competition with 4. I don't really want to talk about it because there's too many videos on it, I'll be honest. People glaze this game way too much. I don't know, go watch the funny Bratman's video on it. So what game do I want to talk about then?
Montana. Big sky country. The treasure state. People got a lot of names for it. I just call it home.
Lived here my whole life. Still amazed at how beautiful it is.
Maybe that's what blinded us to how ugly the people were getting. Good day to you, brother.
You don't understand. No one took these groups seriously.
They were different. Religious. Militant. It was a goddamn cult.
Collapse is upon us, my children.
They started buying up every farm for miles. Then the radio station. Not long after that, they even had the fucking cops.
Their own sovereign religious state. Built right here. Under our noses.
Ain't no one coming to help us. The government can't do shit. We're on our own.
We save those lost souls, whether they want to be saved or not.
People don't want to believe groups like this exist.
People are scared, man.
Some will wish to harm us. Some will wish to destroy all that we have built here together. Some will betray us.
We don't know what he's capable of. Who? Their leader.
Joseph Seed.
They call him the Father.
And those in the outside world are blind. They do not believe. They have no faith. But I will make them see.
I think Far Cry 5 has a lot of things that I love about it. It's always been a game that's had a weird space in my heart because I always did enjoy the game, even though I know it's a bad game. And I think that starts with just this opening intro sequence, which is almost designed as a documentary talking about the rise of the Eden's Gate cult, of course meant to be a mirror to the real-life Heaven's Gate cult, a cult which I have mentioned before in this channel, and I got a lot of complaints that I didn't dive into it, so we'll dive into it. Heaven's Gate was a UFO Afrocentric new religious movement founded in 1974 by Matthew Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles. The cult, however, was mainly known for the mass suicide they performed in 1997, during which 39 of its members died in Rancho Santa Fe, California, believing that this act itself would allow their souls to transcend to an alien spacecraft. It's clear that this cult completely engulfed the members' lives. They were so convinced and completely brainwashed that they believed everything their two leaders said. And you might question, why did these people believe them? Well, the two leaders, Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, claimed to be the two witnesses that were mentioned in the Book of Revelation. The Book of Revelation mentions the end of the world, the day when the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse will ride. But this idea and how charismatic they were able to attract hundreds of people into their cult. And if you want to know the reason they all killed themselves, the pair of them, Bonnie Nettles and Marshall Applewhite, they said that one day they would be taken by a spaceship and transported somewhere else after they killed themselves. Unfortunately, Bonnie Nettles died of cancer. Well, unfortunately, maybe tragically, I guess, died of cancer before they were ready to do this in 1985. And Marshall used this idea to say that she's already moved on to the spaceship, using her death to further the cult and completely indoctrinate these people. This then, years later, led to eventually him almost being forced into committing the mass suicide. But I think setting up the game with a cult called Eden's Gate, which will clearly make you think of this, is going to tell you a lot about the characters that we're going to meet and the state that the world is going to be in. And the main honcho, the top dog of Eden's Gate, is Joseph Seed. Not only an intimidating figure, but a man with a hell of a lot of influence, power, charisma, and most importantly, faith within his hands. Joseph Seed is masterfully played by Greg Brick. I think it's Brick. I love his performance. He's one of the characters that has forever stayed with me. And to me, he's more impactful than a character like Vast because his influence is felt so much throughout the entire game. And Joseph Seed is inspired by many real-life cult leaders, but he's mainly based on David Koresh, who was an American cult leader and a preacher, and he was one of the main central people that caused the Waco siege of 1993 to happen. Again, he told his followers that a biblical apocalypse was coming, and this was due to his interpretation of the Book of Revelations and the 7 seals being opened. And eventually this led to a massive siege as him and his group had a fortified compound, and they were, let's say, armed to the teeth. And the reason they went for him was because he was accused of child abuse and statutory rape. The Waco siege did not end well. The Waco siege went over 51 days and had many different branches of law enforcement involved. The FBI, the Attorney General's even involved with it. There was a hell of a lot going on with it. But during their attempted raid of the building that they were in, they pumped the entire building full of CS gas. Unfortunately, the building caught fire, leading to 79 people dying in the fire, 21 of them being children under the age of 16. It is known as one of the most tragic police raids ever performed in US history. And there was also a massive firefight just before this which killed 4 ATF agents and 6 other members. But I adore this opening so much. It's not like Far Cry 3 or 4, which start with a person being on some kind of trip. In Far Cry 3, you have obviously Jason Brody and his friends doing some adrenaline junkie skydiving shit, and in 4, you have you traveling to the mountains to spread your mother's ashes. In this game, we are seeing what has happened to an area. It's introducing us to the shit that we are heading into. It's not like the first 2 games where we're all of a sudden thrown into it. We are willingly going into this. We take the role as Rook, the rookie within the Sheriff's Department of Hopes County, and together with some of our colleagues and a US Marshal, we enter the place which the cult has taken over, the center of Hope County, and see the sheer influence Joseph Seed has taken over the people. They have built a fucking statue to him. But I think the most interesting thing about Far Cry 5 is that it has a very different setup to Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4. We don't accidentally fall into shit due to either accidentally landing on the wrong island during our holiday and doing a little bit of adrenaline junkie stuff, or traveling to a country during a massive civil war and getting caught in the middle of it. We are heading into Hope County to actually arrest Joseph Seed. We are the aggressors here. We are the one that are starting this shit that we are about to get ourselves into. Even the Sheriff Whitehorse here is suggesting to the Marshal to just leave Seed alone.
Just long enough for you to change your mind, so we can turn this bird around. You want me to ignore a federal warrant, Sheriff? No, sir. I want you to understand the reality of this situation. Joseph Seed, he's not a man to be fucked with. We've had run-ins with him before. They haven't always gone our way. Just sometimes. Sometimes it's best to leave well enough alone.
To just look the other way and head on back, but the Marshal is determined to bring him in, even despite seeing the sheer scale, power, and influence that Seed has on the area and the cult has as well. We can see down below the damage that they're causing to this land. We see how big their operation is at this point. This isn't a small community. This is basically a private militia. Fuck, they even have industrial grade flamethrowers just hanging about, just blasting shit. But with us landing, we now head out of the heli and start making our way to the church to arrest Joseph Seed.
Oh, Marshal. When we do this, we do it my way. Quietly. Calmly. You got it? Fine. Hudson on the door. Watch our backs. Don't let any of these people get in. Rookie, on me. And you, just try not to do anything stupid.
Relax, Sheriff. You're about to get your name in the paper. You'll be fine.
Something is coming. You can feel it, can you? We are creeping toward the edge. And there will be a reckoning. That is why we started the project. Because we know what happens next. They will come. They will try to take from us. Take our guns. Take our freedom. Take our faith. We will not let them.
Sheriff, come on.
Hold on, Marshal.
We will not let their greed, or their immorality, or their depravity hurt us anymore.
Sheriff.
There will be no more suffering.
Fuck this. Joseph C. I have a warrant issued for your arrest on the suspicion of kidnapping with the intent to harm. Now, I want you to step forward and keep your hands where I can see them.
There they are, the locusts in our garden. See, they've come for me. They've come to take me away from you. They've come to destroy all that we've built.
Do not touch that citizen! Hold on and don't stand down! Stand down! Everyone calm down!
We knew this moment would come. And we've prepared for it. Go. Go. God will not let them take me. I saw when the Lamb opened the first seal, and I heard, as it were the noise of thunder, one of the four beasts say, "Come and see."
Step forward.
And I saw. And behold, it was a white horse. And hell followed with him.
Rookie, cuff this son of a bitch.
God will not let you take me.
Rook, put the cuffs on him.
Now we are given the option to arrest Joseph Seed, but I want to look more into what Joseph is going on about. I saw when the Lamb opened the first seal, and I heard as it were the noise of thunder. One of the four beasts say, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, it was a white horse, and hell followed with him. This is a famous quote from Revelations 6:1, which is the beginning passage which introduces the first of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and the first seal breaking. Now, many people interpret that Seed here is the first of those four horsemen, with each of his family members acting as one of the other three, as all of them share some sort of characteristic that associates them with it. Joseph being the first one, Conquest, having a crown tattoo on the center of his chest, which Conquest is often associated and depicted as having a crown, but also having yellow sunglasses, which is the color often associated with Conquest. In the back you have Jacob, who is associated with war. He is a war veteran and has ginger hair. Also, his primary weapon that we get from him when we defeat him is a sniper rifle with a red coat of paint. John, his youngest brother, is associated with Famine. Famine is often associated and depicted as riding a black horse, and John is seen often wearing darker colours, but also John has to do with a lot of dealing and using and buying of resources, people and land. He is meant to represent famine in his own way, and the girl, Faith Seed, is often said to be death, which is kind of seen with the white / very pale green dress she's wearing that is covered in vines of some sort. Each member is meant to mirror each horseman of the apocalypse, and that's what many people interpret and see the story as. But you'll notice something that Joseph does here. He doesn't seem to point at himself as Conquest. He's talking about the first seal being broken and the first of the four horsemen riding, and when he does that, he seemingly points at our boss, Sheriff White Horse, when referring to the white horse, saying that he sees the white horse, and then when he refers to the first rider, he looks towards the marshal, almost telling us and pointing out that if Sheriff Whitehorse is Conquest's horse, then the marshal is Conquest himself. To me, it's clear that Joseph is trying to tell us that he sees Conquest and his horse. Conquest is the marshal, a man who has come to this place on the orders of a higher power, the justice system, in order to try restore order and peace to the land, coming in and trying to conquer it. Conquest is often interpreted as a form of authority, such as an empire, kingdom, or in this case, the law of the United States of America. The rest represents that the government is attempting to impose its own will upon the cult. It's taking the first action for conquest. It's a war on Joseph's Seed and the Eden's Gate cult trying to control him, trying to conquer him. And interestingly, the marshal, when entering the church, says this to the sheriff.
Relax, Sheriff. You're about to get your name in the paper.
He's not here and doesn't believe so strongly in taking Joseph in because he wants to enact justice, but he knows that he'll gain something from it. Fame, a promotion, we don't know, and conquest is often believed to be associated with this as well. That the conquests will occur not for the right reason. Some authority will overstep their power and try to control people for some personal gain or a net negative, not an actual good thing. Now, of course, the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse is something that isn't really 100% in the Bible. The only named horseman in the Bible is Death himself. That's the only one that's ever named actually in the Bible. A lot of the names that are associated in modern times have kind of been just given and adopted to represent each of the riders. And the most popular ones being Conquest, War, Famine, and Death are the ones that just represent what each one is meant to bring. Conquest, most interestingly, some people theorize could be the Antichrist itself, that when the Antichrist appears, that's when the end of the world will begin. And having Joseph's Seed almost mirror the appearance of Conquest with the crown on his chest and the yellow glasses, you could then maybe make the argument and maybe the idea that Joseph's Seed is the Antichrist. This idea comes from the prospect that once Conquest rides, a great division will occur because the Antichrist will position itself as a false prophet, gathering those that are faithful to Christ and tricking them, bringing conquest, conquering the faithful, if that makes sense. But also there's another interpretation of conquest, that the first horseman is called pestilence. This is one that I used to personally know of. This is the name I used to believe it was, and that is meant to believe that an infectious disease or plague will spread throughout the kingdom, empire, the world, that will change it entirely. Pestilence could mean many things. People sometimes believe that the Black Plague might have been pestilence, or another big illness that spread throughout most of the world was that horseman riding. But a plague can be something else. The cult themselves could represent a plague, a scourge on the community that is now starting to spread beyond the county. We will see later in the game that the cult's reach is much further than just Hope County. It spreads into the outside world as well, almost like a plague that has spread and now become too big to actually get rid of. That's the other interpretation, that what Conquest could be. By the way, I'm not religious, I'm not a Christian, I just have a lot of interest, especially in this story, mainly due to the game series Darksiders, because I just find it really interesting. So my knowledge is limited. If I'm getting anything wrong, please let me know in the comments, because I don't intend to, but I think it's interesting. And right here, Joseph warns us to not do that. We will cause the end if we follow Conquest, if we follow the Marshal and do what he asks of us, if we take Joseph in. And when pointing at us, the player, he states, "Hell followed him." This line is often believed in the book of Revelation, is believed to mean that the one following Conquest brings hell. Who brings hell? Well, often hell is associated with the final rider, death itself. Joseph sees us both as the lamb and death itself. We will be the one to enact the end of everything. We will break all the seals and unleash death upon all. So what if we choose not to arrest seed and unleash the first seal? What if we follow God's instructions and not take seed? Well, White Horse will see us hesitating and will tell us to leave, as maybe we should.
We're leaving, Rook.
What the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? Sheriff, get back there.
Shut up and listen. You put those cuffs on him, none of us get out of here alive.
I will have you all arrested.
So be it.
Better arrested and accused of treachery or treason against the United States than dead, I guess. And that is Far Cry 5. Now, yeah, that is one of the endings, but that is the secret ending that every Far Cry game has. But what if you do what you're supposed to do and actually arrest Joseph Seed? Well,
That's the best thing to do, is to walk away.
the action of placing those cuffs on him clearly ruffles the feathers of the cult members, and they don't make us feel very safe. And as we start to escort Joseph to the helicopter, we see that shit is going to start hitting the fan rather quick. As we start to try and leave, of course, someone makes a mistake. The Marshal shoots his gun, aggroing every enemy within a 5-mile radius, and they all jump on the helicopter as it starts to take off like zombies in World War Z. And of course, this is a video game, so if there's a helicopter in it, it has to crash.
Voices.
Are you there? Is somebody there? Please.
I told you.
scratch? Everything is just fine here. No need to call anyone.
Yes, Father. Praise be to you.
No one is coming to save you.
I absolutely love this moment so much, as not only are we in some serious shit, but even our outside support is completely under Joseph's control. He has influenced the outside world as well. And man, Greg Brick, the actor for Joseph Seed, does an absolutely stellar job as playing Joseph and making you truly see this man as someone who believes he can hear God. But this is a moment that almost every Far Cry game does very well at the beginning. It's the all hope is lost moment when Jason Brody's brother is shot by Vaas and you're running into the woods, or in Far Cry 4 when shit hits the fan and you run away from the palace that you were eating crab rangoon in. But with our compatriots waking up, the reaping has begun. What is the reaping? Well, if we just had Conquest Ride and try to conquer Joseph, if I'd have to assume, war would follow next, and Joseph starts taking everyone, and now we need to make a run into the woods to avoid capture. The reaping seems to be when those that oppose the cult are punished for that. The cult enact a war on those that will never side with them, those that judge and will try to harm them. And due to our actions, due to us trying to conquer the cult and Seed, unfortunately we now have to face the consequences of starting a war with them. And now we have to run away into the woods and have a little bit of stealth action. And Far Cry 5's stealth is fairly simple, with the fun little detection meter that goes up and down until it gets filled up and then you get spotted. But what can we do in stealth? What can we do to deal with these people and avoid being spotted? Well, we can be a sneaky snake going through the grass and just not being spotted, throw rocks to distract people, perform a takedown, or if we have obtained a melee weapon, lob that shit straight at them and knock them out immediately. And having dealt with our first enemy, we can retrieve a 1911 and get our first gun. And guns feel kind of weird in this game. It feels like when you're trying to run in a dream, it just feels wrong. It just feels very heavy and you have to lead every shot you take, even if someone's like 5 meters in front of you. But eventually reaching a specific cabin, we find the marshal having holed up in here, but the Peggies are sweeping the area and we are going to have to shoot our way out to escape them. And retrieving a vehicle, we begin our escape and they will throw absolutely everything they have at us. Trucks, ATVs, deers, roadblocks, and even planes. And no matter how good you are at shooting, eventually reaching a bridge, the car in front of us will blow up and we will fall into the river. Having been injured and the marshal being captured on the other bank, we are found by a familiar man, Walter White, who takes us back to his bunker.
My children, we must give thanks to God. The day I have prophesied to you has arrived. Everything I told you has come true. The authorities who tried to take me from you are now in the loving embrace of my family. Save for one.
You are my children, and together we will march to it.
You know what that shit means? It means the roads have all been closed. It means the phone lines have been cut.
Oh.
It means there's no signals getting in and out of this valley. But mostly it means we're all fucked. goddamn collapse. They all think the world's coming to an end now. They've been waiting for it. For years. Waiting for somebody to come along and fulfill their prophecy and kick off their goddamn holy war. Well, you sure as shit kicked. Smartest thing for me to do would just be to hand you over. Fuck. Get out of that uniform. We need to burn it. There's some fresh clothes there. When you get changed, you come and see me. We'll see if we can unfuck this situation.
Seems all outside contact has been cut within Hope County, and he mentions Eden Gate believes the collapse is coming, an end of the world. A holy war will ensue, and Dutch here wants our help in freeing Hope County from cult in this war. We are going to have to join the war and be the main thorn in their side, and if Joseph is to be believed, then potentially the end of the world is coming if this war continues and we break even more of the seals. But is any of this real? Is Joseph just a crazy man, and do we actually care? He's just taken all of our colleagues hostage and we're the only ones that have escaped with our freedom, so we do kind of want to get some revenge on him after putting us through all that shit. So of course, without saying anything, we agree to Walter White's plan and agree to become his Jesse. But within this bunker we can find a board with the 4 main members or leaders of the cult, and it's explained in Dutch's own understanding of what they stand for, but it's clear that he doesn't fully know who they are or what they actually do. This is just a general rundown on each of them. Jacob Seed, the military guy that is in the Whitetail Mountains. John Seed, the more charismatic younger brother in the Holland Valley. And then Faith Seed, the youngest, who appeared out of nowhere, who is in the Hebane River. And of course, Joseph Seed, the head honcho. But with Dutch, he gives us our first job, and that is to rid the cult from the island which contains his bunker. So emerging from our vault, we are welcomed into the world of Montana, and it certainly is an open world. It is like the most typical Ubisoft open world. It's 4 times too big, and 70% of this fucking map is trees. But with Dutch, we need to build a resistance, which can be done in any number of ways. Saving civilians, destroying cult properties, liberating outposts, or doing missions that are assigned to us by the many people that we'll meet here in the nice outback of Montana. But here on the island, we'll be introduced to at least one of every type of side mission and side activity that the game has to offer, from prepper stashes, which are scattered all over the map containing upgrade points, cash and ammo, to chance encounters to save hostages, even being able to find the compound bow almost immediately within the prepper stash, which you can then use in the first outpost, allowing us to actually choose how we want to interact with the sandbox and decide how we want to deal with all these activities. One thing that Far Cry games always do really well is allowing the player to tinker with the sandbox and approach outposts, missions and side activities however they want. There is more scripted and structured side activities like races and stunt things that this game has, but a lot of them allow you to approach them in almost any way you want. You can go loud, throwing explosives everywhere, or just be sneaky and take everyone out silently. Also, we get introduced to the guns for hire mechanic, basically AI companions, which turn this game from somewhat of a challenge at times to being piss easy. But completing all of the objectives and reaching the specific resistance amount required on this island, we are then allowed to be set free across the rest of the county after climbing atop a radio tower to restore some radio contact with Dutch. And Dutch will give us the rundown on Hope County.
Whitetail Mountains. It's run by Jacob Seed, oldest brother of that fucking family. Jacob's the one training the cult, and he's damn good at what he does. Eli and the Whitetail militia have been trying to hold out, but Jacob's ready to step on their necks. Southeast of there, you got the Henbane River. That's Faith's territory. The Little Sister. I've heard all sorts of stories about people losing their minds in a place called the Bliss. Now, head west to the Holland Valley. John Seed's just rolled in there and has taken everything in the name of the cult. Food, supplies, and worst of all, people. Now, they're gonna have plenty more calls all over the county. I'll keep you posted on anything that'll be useful.
So Jacob Seed is the one responsible for training the cult, and he is fairly good at it. And that area of the map is called the Whitetail Mountains, a more mountainous area if the name didn't give it away. Then you have Faith Seed in the Hebane River, a section of the county filled more with rivers and lakes and swamp areas, and she again is focused on the production of the Bliss, a drug, a hallucinogenic drug to be exact, the cult uses to brainwash people and control them. And then to the southwest, we have John Seed, the youngest brother, and he is the one that has been gathering supplies such as food, water, land, guns, and people for the cult, and spreading the word of the cult and the message of their leader, Joseph. We can pick whatever target we want to head for first, with the fog lifting, allowing us to explore the rest of the map completely, allowing us to go in whatever direction we want. Something this game shamefully steals from Breath of the Wild a year later, with us having 3 main objectives instead of 4, and we can choose whichever one we want to go for first. I'm joking, but with the fog clearing, a broadcast goes live which Dutch shows to us, and we will meet the first target that we will be hunting after, that being John Seed.
We are all sinners. Every one of us. You, me. Even the Father knows deeply of sin. It's poison that clouds our minds. What if I told you you could be free from sin? What if I told you that everything you ever dreamed could come true? What if I told you that everything could be overcome if you embraced an idea? That freedom from sin can come from the power of just one word.
Yes.
Yes! Yes. I am a sinner. Yes. I wish to be unburdened. Yes. I must be redeemed. If you're watching this, know that you have been selected. You will be cleansed, you will confess your sins, and you will be offered atonement. Don't worry. You don't have to do anything. We'll come for you. Welcome to Eden's Gate.
Well, seems our partner or colleague Hudson has been taken by John, and while you don't have to go after John immediately, the game is subtly pushing you in that direction, almost recommending that this should be the first one you go for. Why is this? Well, each area has completely different enemies, terrain, and tactics that you have to employ to deal and fight in that area. From a gameplay standpoint, that is really cool, because each area plays slightly differently. You have different enemies in each area, the land is laid out means you have to approach and search the area differently, and the reason that they suggest John's area first is that it is the most simple and easiest one to do, as the other 2 areas have some more difficult features to them that I'll explain a bit later. But basically, one, there's too much fucking water everywhere, making it almost annoying to navigate, and the other one has a stupid amount of soldiers on patrol who not only patrol the roads but also the woods. In the other 2 areas, the woods are almost safe areas. So for example, in John's area, if you're in the woods, the only thing you have to really worry about are animals. In Jacob's area, there are enemies in the woods. In Faith's area, There's a certain mechanic with the bliss that messes with you and makes it almost more difficult to deal with. So we are going to start with John Seed, as I believe that is the one that most people will start with first. Now for each of these 3 areas, we'll have to build up the resistance for said area, and we'll have to do this by doing certain activities, either the side activities or the main story quests they're called, which they aren't main story quests because you don't have to do any story quests at all. You could save thousands of hostages and fully build up the resistance without liberating an outpost, doing any missions, or even blowing up any sort of cult shrines or anything. And that is actually something I do quite like about Far Cry 5. Every objective and activity is optional. There is only, 10, I would say, missions that you have to do. 3 associated with each leader, and then 1 with Joseph at the end of the game. The main story missions aren't really main story missions because you can just avoid them entirely, but the main story missions do give the most progress in building up your resistance. Doing side activities like blowing up a shrine or saving a hostage give very small amounts, so you'd have to do that a hell of a lot more. But actually going to this area, I guess we should talk about what kind of things that we get access to actually tackle all of these objectives and missions. So I guess we should talk about the general gameplay of Far Cry 5. Far Cry 5's gameplay is one of its biggest strengths overall in my opinion, as all of it, of course, like all Ubisoft games, focus on using the open world in some way to give the player some freedom. The map of Montana and Hope County is really well made, kind of. One of the biggest compliments that Far Cry 5 always gets is its visuals. Visually, it's actually a really good looking game, and for 2018 when this game came out, it did somewhat rival RDR2, which came out in the same year, and still to this day, it looks really, really nice. Throughout my entire playthrough, I thought the game looked really good looking, and it never broke or freaked out on me, and I never experienced any bugs. Of course I did. I really do like the look of the game. I think it looks great, and I think this is kind of the peak that graphics have hit now, and this game kind of is the top end of that, and I don't think we'll really see games surpass this for a very long time. Well, Ubisoft games, that is. One complaint I will have though, the HDR and brightness settings, oh my fucking god, they are a nightmare to deal with. You might notice in my recordings that a lot of my brightness settings and the colors seem a bit off. I've had to color correct almost all of my footage because all of it was completely fucked. During the first, say, 10 hours of gameplay, I had HDR enabled. All of that gameplay was basically grey tone. It was all washed out like anything, and it looked absolutely disgusting. And I've tried to fix it to the best I can, but even then, a lot of the color has been lost because of that. That's my fault. I always forget that OBS just does not like HDR footage. It just, for some reason, freaks out when you try to record it. But even with the basic brightness settings, I noticed early on in the game, when you went in and out of houses, the game tries to replicate the natural thing that happens where your eyes have to adjust to the change in lighting. On paper, yes, it's realistic. When you walk out of a cinema and you've been in there for 2 hours and you walk out into the sun, your eyes are gonna fucking freak out and you're gonna feel like you're going blind. But in game, it just doesn't work. When you're going in houses every couple of minutes, and especially when you're fighting in a house, ducking and weaving between doors, it gets so annoying, and it's actually extremely unrealistic because your eyes would be adjusted to the light. So if you just ducked in for like say 10 seconds and then ducked back out, your eyes wouldn't experience that intense flash. They would still adjust, but not as intensely. This was so unbearable that I actually had to find a way to reduce it as much as possible, and eventually I did settle on a brightness setting that did make the game bearable for this problem. It was so bad at the beginning that I spent about an hour tinkering with it to get it fixed, and then an hour again when I turned HDR off. Now, another problem I'm going to state with this game is, oh my god, Ubisoft do not maintain their games at all. It is insane every time I go back to an old Ubisoft game, be it Watch Dogs about a year ago, when I played Watch Dogs 2 again, when I'm probably going to play Far Cry 3 and 4, the amount of fucking issues that these games run into, or just random things that just don't work, is such a piss take. I get it, these games are getting old now. Far Cry 5 is approaching on being 10 years old now, but I think modern games that are all built on x86 architecture machines, modern Xboxes, PlayStations, and PCs should be able to last 20, 30 years before they really start breaking. Far Cry 5 has a massive issue if your CPU, especially if you have a good one like I do, has hyperthreading on it. This game just does not understand what the fuck to do with hyperthreading, so a loading screen which should take 2 seconds on my fucking SSD takes 5 minutes because the game is so confused about what it's doing that it just completely slogs to a halt. The game runs fine, don't get me wrong, I have a fucking monster of a rig that can run anything I throw at it, but loading the game just takes so long. So of course when I went into BIOS, disabled hyperthreading because that didn't exist when this game was made, the game ran fine, perfectly fine. And you might wonder why I'm complaining about this. You know, I played Max Payne and you have to go through fucking fiery hoops and do everything possible to get that game to run on a modern machine. The main problem I have with this is Far Cry 5 has so many fucking microtransactions and DLCs that they still sell that to me it feels so wrong to charge for these things when I actively have to change settings on my computer to get it running. This is a massive problem that I know a lot of people have with PC gaming, is just how fucking convoluted it is to get games running on it. And I would admit, yeah, it's a pain in the ass, and I do sometimes miss playing on console, but my god, I think developers should be made to update these games, especially if they're monetizing things off of them. If you can still buy microtransactions, if they're still selling the game most of the time at full price on Steam, I still think they should update it and make sure that it works well enough, that it runs and doesn't fucking kill itself when you try to run it. Now, of course, it's a Ubisoft game, so it's filled with bugs and glitches and shit that shouldn't happen, NPCs that are just completely lifeless, you'll fall through the floor about 4 times, and mechanics that make absolutely no sense until you figure them out and actually learn how to use them, and they're the most counterintuitive things in the world. But despite all my complaints about fucking Ubisoft's microtransaction system, which I really do wish they would stop doing, throwing premium currencies into single player games, I'm not spending 10 quid to buy a single gun. Stop it. The game still has so much to love. The map itself looks really, really nice, and it is filled with a lot of stuff to see and kind of do. A lot of the side activities are fun. I like the prepper stashes, which are more little puzzle activities. Of course, you have the hideouts, which are big action set pieces that you can go with. There is a lot of actually good side missions that I really, really enjoyed in this game that I would go over if I was going to make this a 6-hour long video, but I'm not going to. But despite me liking a lot of the side activities, the map a lot of the time does just feel like set dressing. Not a lot of the actual buildings have purposes beyond a side mission or being a location where a vendor will stand in. Yes, the map is pretty, but it just feels like a fake set for a movie. It never really feels like a real place that is actually lived in, and I think that's because not a lot of NPCs are really doing anything. Finding a certain location in the game is this like ghost town which is abandoned and is filled with just these mannequins, which I'm guessing is used as almost like a paintball or maybe training area for something. I don't know what it's used for. There is a little side mission here where you learn how to use all the drugs in the game, but this town, it felt like it had more fucking life in it, the ghost town, than the actual towns in the game, because all the mannequins were actually positioned in places where you would see them. I just think it's such a shame you have such a pretty looking game with such an interesting location, Montana, very unique for a game, and it just feels so lifeless. Even hunting in this game, comparing it to something like RDR2, it is like hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby. The hunting in this game is so bad, and I don't understand why it is so bad. I actually think the fishing is pretty good, like it's just good enough. You go to a location where there's fish and you fish, but the hunting, it feels so difficult to find specific animals you want to hunt, and that's because they change how hunting works in this game entirely compared to Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4. Far Cry 3, you had specific locations where those animals would spawn, and going there you would find them quite consistently. They would be roaming around and you'd find them very, very easily. Far Cry 5, it just feels like there's never any animals anywhere until you find like a massive herd of them, and then there's just no more after that. Or you throw a bit of meat on the floor and you will watch the animals spawn in the sky, ragdoll and roll down the hill because the developers couldn't find a way to make them spawn more naturally, unlike what Rockstar did in RDR2. It is just such a shame because I think Far Cry 3 was genuinely one of the best games and the first innovator in actually doing good hunting mechanics in a game, making it engaging, making it fun to actually do and go out of your way to do. And Far Cry 5 just feels like it really fails at innovating in any interesting way, and in my opinion, it just feels like a massive step back. I always hate comparing like any game to a Rockstar game, and I know like you have them stupid fucking Twitter accounts that will post something that is completely meaningless in the game, showing like, oh my god, look at this detail that you'll never see if you play the game for 500 hours. I have 1,000 hours in RDR2 and I didn't even know that the water comes out of the trough when you shoot it. Yeah, it's cool, but like, Jesus, that doesn't make the game good. But comparing RDR2 to Far Cry 5, I think is a fair comparison because the games came out in the same year. They have very similar mechanics in terms of hunting and fishing, and the overall style and the game that they are very similar. Open world action games that have you set free in a world where you can do what you want, following the main story or doing side activities that have either big ramifications and massive story moments or are just pointless, just for the fun of it. But man, comparing it to RDR2 is just such a shame because this game just fails in a lot of areas. And the fact that comparing it to like GTA 4 in terms of how it uses its world and sets up its world and builds it up, it's mental that a game that is 10 years younger than Far Cry 5 has a world that feels more lived in, more alive, and more interactive than a game in 2018, which is 10 years newer than it. But I guess let's talk about something that isn't that disappointing. Guns. The gunplay is odd at first. It feels very heavy, slow, and a bit sloppy, but I do actually really like the gunplay. I was playing the game in hard mode, the hardest mode that you get access to in your first run, and I really enjoyed it. The game has a fairly simple upgrading system, with you being able to choose a choice of sight, a suppressor, and an extendo mag for every gun, except a couple that can't say have a suppressor or an extended mag, like a shotgun. You can't really extend a shotgun's mag unless you completely change the gun up. It's simple, but it works good enough in my opinion. But what I really do like is that the simple upgrade system allows you to use almost any gun you want in either stealth or loud game. The balance between stealth and loud is really important because certain players like playing more in stealth and certain players like playing more in action, sort of heavy explosions, everything. Me personally, I just like stealth. I find it way more satisfying. That might be like my Metal Gear brain in me, that it just loves just picking off enemies, watching patrols, figuring out what to do. And Far Cry kind of has a cool stealth system at times, but as soon as you get spotted, it kind of just breaks and you're forced into loud. But the main thing that I really enjoyed in this game was sniping. Sniping is so fun. I remember I saw a video saying that snipers were useless. My god, they are so fun in this game because you will miss almost every shot you take, but you have to learn how to use it. You'll have to learn the drop, how to lead a shot, everything like that. It's so fun. Yeah, it ain't no like Sniper Elite where you have to account for wind, bullet drop, how the bullet moves through the wind and everything. Way more simple than that, but it's so fun. But in addition to having this simple upgrade system, you also have other ammo types for every gun in the game. Certain guns will definitely struggle on certain enemy types. Using an SMG on a heavy boy that has full armor will not be very effective, but you can load it with armor penetration rounds, which will allow you to pierce through that armor more easily. Now, some guns get way more love than others for this idea. Most guns just have access to normal bullets, which are the ones that you're going to mainly be using on normal targets, but then you have armor pen rounds, which you can use on big boys, flamethrower boys, and some vehicles as well if you want to punch through a door or the underside of a plane. And yes, you can shoot on the underside of a plane to kill the pilot. But shotguns and bows get a hell of a lot more love. Shotguns and bows both get two types of incendiary rounds, incendiary arrows and dragon's breath rounds, and the bow gets an explosive bolt as well, which is a grenade on the end of an arrow. But shotguns get slugs, and I always love slugs in games, but they're either very hit or miss, either being very pointless because they don't extend the range enough, or you need to be too precise with them, or they're not that big of an upgrade. Shotguns overall are very powerful, but at anything I would say beyond 20 meters, they really struggle on hard. But if you put a slug in the shotgun, oh my god, it turns into a sniper rifle. A big complaint many people had for Far Cry 5 and its difficulty was the first AR that you get, the basic semi-automatic sniper you get. I think it's based after an AR-15 or something. I don't know. I can't be bothered to look it up. That would one-shot normal enemies on normal. In hard, it doesn't unless you headshot them. But the shotgun with slugs will. It is such a treat to use and is so fun to just blast enemies away with this, and it actually makes a special ammo type change the way the gun is used completely. And I really wish they did more with this concept. I know there isn't many types of ammo you can add in games, but I just feel like it's something that is somewhat simple to do and would add a lot of fun to the game and actually completely change the way you use guns. And I hate to say it, this is something that RDR2 does perfectly. I have a lot of hours on RDR2 and I love the game to death, and I have about 400 hours on RDO, and the amount of different ammo types that you have access to completely change how guns perform and how you use them and what situations you can use them in. Some just simply upgrade the damage, others increase the accuracy, some increase the range, but it allows you to tinker in another way to make the gun more yours, which I like. And don't even get me started on explosive rounds. Oh my god, they're fun. But it even allows in hunting certain weapons to be better for certain activities or hunting specific animals, which is something I really wish that Far Cry did, was you have to use certain weapons to hunt certain animals. Far Cry, you can damage the pelt, damage the meat, damage the skin of animals, and you get worse loot from them. This mainly happens if you either blow them up or set them on fire. But I feel like if you shoot, say, a turkey with a 50 BMG, I think you should damage the bird entirely. And in contrast, using, say, a pistol on a bear should damage the pelt completely because you'll riddle it with bullet holes. In Red Dead, pretty much most people, what they do is they use the bolt action for hunting big things, the varmint for small things, and if you want to be cool, you can use the bow to hunt deers, but I just used the bolt action rifle normally for that. But what is fun is the repeaters, certain repeaters, mainly the Litchfield, could be loaded with express rounds, which would increase the damage and actually make them do enough damage to hunt bigger animals and actually not damage the pelts, which I found really, really cool because it allows you to use certain weapons that you actually want to use. And in a game like Red Dead, where you can only carry so many weapons on you, being able to switch to a different ammo type to hunt a different animal, amazing. It works really, really well. But there is some really fun guns in the game, and what I do like about Far Cry 5 is every gun does feel usable. I used as many guns as I could. The main problem I kept running into was I was running out of money every time I wanted to buy a new gun. So I tried to use at least one gun from every category and tried to use the full auto rifle and then the semi-auto rifle, a couple of different SMGs, a couple of different pistols. I tried to use as many as possible, and every gun is very useful and is good, other than the flamethrower. The flamethrower is fucking useless, but every gun is good. SMGs are light, quick, and compact, and they can clear out enemies way faster than I thought they would. Big problem that Ubisoft games often have is enemies just become bullet sponges, but they're not in this game. The basic pistol you get at the start, the 1911, can one-shot a basic enemy if you shoot them in the head. So if you're good at aiming and you like a specific gun, just keep it. There's no reason to change it for a gun that does more damage or less damage because they all one-shot in the head. Guns more should be used as, I would say, tools to deal with specific enemies. You should have a weapon that deals with basic infantry enemies, you should have one that should be able to deal with bigger enemies, and I think you should have one that is able to deal with either hordes of enemies or deal with enemies from very far away. For me, this meant I carried the 50 BMG sniper, the Lynx sniper that you get at the very end. I really liked that because it had a faster fire rate. The AK that you get at the end as well, because I didn't really like the SMGs and I wanted something that hit a bit harder for the tankier enemies because I could just dump 15 rounds in their head and kill them, and a shotgun for fun. But you can choose whatever weapons you want, and there is no wrong choice. The only wrong choice really is the flamethrower because it is useless in hard. It is so bad in hard, I had to put the difficulty on easy to do its challenge just because I wanted to stop using it. There are some more wacky weapons, of course, as well. The bow returns and is very fun and is a good weapon overall because it's silent first of all, and you can retrieve all the rounds that you use with it unless you use the explosive ones, which they blow up. But even other weapons like a slingshot, which is somewhat effective, and even a thunder gun, which can turn people into sludge, which is certainly a weapon. My only one complaint I would have overall for the weapons is I never felt like guns were encouraged to be constantly changed out for different objectives. I feel like there needed to be way more different hideouts. You needed to be able to give more information about said hideouts and more situations to allow you to engage with a certain gameplay style. Sniper rifles should be able to be used, in my opinion, at 200 meters at a minimum, but the way that the snipers are used in this game is they gave them a scope that can only zoom so far, that actually shooting at over 150 meters is incredibly difficult. And when you're like me, someone that wants to find a really high perch as far away as possible and just snipe and see if I can clear a base without even stepping foot in it, it's such a shame because the game's map almost encourages that in a way because of how it's designed. But even with like SMGs, I never really found a situation other than certain main missions where they would be useful, but you don't often get to pick these up very easily. A lot of the enemies in the game will just use 3 weapons: shotgun, the basic AR, or the semi-auto AR. That's it. That's mostly all they use. I very rarely saw enemies use different weapons unless you found a sniper or a heavy boy who brought a LMG, or the flamethrower boy who of course brings the flamethrower. I just wish the enemies got access to way more weapons, so actually grabbing different weapons was more encouraged. But the most fun that you will have in this game is with drugs, or boosters as they're called. They are called homeopathic boosters, and they are stupidly fun. First up, you have the fast, which increases your movement speed drastically, allowing you to run, crouch, and just walk way too fast. It's not amazing, but it is fun to use, and it does allow you to actually dodge gunfire by running faster than enemies are targeting you. Ultimate Hunter automatically tags all the enemies and animals in your line of sight or in your vicinity, and causes predators, aggressive animals, to run away from you, not that kind of predator. This is helpful if you don't have Boomer with you, but if you are running Boomer as your main companion, you're not going to get a lot of use out of these things because it just is kind of pointless, because he does the exact same thing except he doesn't scare off predators, which can be a negative if you're trying to hunt them. Ultimate Survivor though is a lot more useful. It just reduces the damage you take from gunfire, explosions, full damage, everything. It makes you so tanky, and it is something I use a hell of a lot of because in hard you die in about 3 shots. So extending that to 4 shots is very, very nice, especially when you go through medkits as fast as you do. But the best is the last one, and that is Furious, which drastically enhances your melee damage, allowing you to instantly kill and launch any enemy or animal in the game, making melee weapons and your fists the strongest weapons in the game. This booster is so strong, it's actually funny. It's basically the same thing as Psycho in Fallout. You get so drugged out that anything you punch or hit with a melee weapon will die instantly. Heavy boys, flamethrower boys, bears, bison, anything. They will just die. And there were moments in this game where I would just drug myself absolutely up to the limit and just punch everything out of the way, especially in Faith's region with all the zombies. Oh my god, it is so fun. But of course, alongside these weapons and boosters, an assortment of shit that you can throw at enemies, causing them to blow up, set on fire, or just annoy them is also available to you. Sticks of dynamite, grenades, which then can be modified to be sticky, remote explosives, which can have a proximity setting on them, pipe bombs, molotovs, and rocks. All of these tools can be either used to kill human combatants or for hunting if you want to do it that way. Hunting in Far Cry 5 again feels way less important, mainly due to the upgrade system change in this game. In the previous games, which required you to hunt specific animals and special variants of said animals to get materials required to upgrade things that allowed you to carry more guns, more ammo, more grenades, all these different things, Far Cry 5 completely strips all of that out entirely. Hunting is not needed for any upgrades in the game. Hunting is only for money now, and what replaces it for progress is a challenge-based system. I fucking hate challenge-based systems. Challenge-based systems were like the mid-2010s, like early 2020s favorite thing for some reason. Every game had them. Far Cry, probably Assassin's Creed had it as well. I remember Halo had it really, really bad. Call of Duty tried to do it. They then reverted it. Payday 3 did it. They then reverted it. The system on paper is good. It gives players challenges to do to engage with different systems within the game. It encourages them to use whatever they want and allows them to progress at a fast rate in the beginning. But that's the problem. Challenge-based systems for progression are not a constant line. Progression in games most of the time, the simple level up system, you kill enemy, you get XP, is a pretty much flat line. There is a little bit of a dip where it starts to slow. Challenge-based systems in the beginning the progression is very quick. It's way above, but eventually at some point it will just drop because you have done so many challenges that there isn't a lot left, and you're then forced to play the game in ways that you might not like, or the game forces you into using certain things instead of others, even though you really enjoy using those things. For example, I had to use the flamethrower. The flamethrower is useless. It is so bad and so annoying to use. It is a pain in the ass to do the challenge. But a lot of the game's challenges are kind of split into 4 sections. You have basic combat, which you have to do certain things within combat. Use this gun, use this type of gun, use this gun, do this in combat, death from above, death from below, chain takedowns, pistol takedowns, all these different things you have to do in combat. They're not bad, but they are frustrating at times, especially things like death from below, which is such a niche thing. And I only found like 2 or 3 instances where that could have been possible, and the flamethrower. Then you have hunting, which is skin certain animals, fishing, which is catch certain fish, but if you don't engage with the fishing system, you're not going to do any of these challenges. And the last one is get kills with certain companions, forcing you to use the companions even if you don't want to, like I did. I didn't want to use them. I wanted to make the game as difficult as possible, but I needed to use them to get upgrade points so I could upgrade my guy. The entire upgrade system just doesn't work. At first it feels fine, but trust me, when you get like, I'd say over 60% of the challenges done, you'll have a lot of upgrades done, but you'll then be forced to do a lot of things in the game that you might not want to. And it just is annoying. And the problem with this, it actually is a downgrade overall, not only because it means you're forced into doing certain things that you might not have wanted to, it makes hunting way less important for Far Cry 5. It still is important because you need to hunt to make money in this game, like a good amount of it so you can buy guns. But Far Cry 3, hunting was essential. You had to hunt to get the upgrades. In this game, it basically makes everything in the game optional, which is a cool thing, but it does mean that if you don't engage with a certain system, the game doesn't really punish you for that. It does in a way. You won't get the skill points to upgrade certain things, but there is no skill tree in this game. If you just save up the points you want, you can get the upgrades you desire. A lot of the upgrades I saw as pointless, so I just skipped entirely. And one thing I always like about skill trees is they force you to buy skills that you might think are useless, but you will find a use for later. I don't like that skill trees are going the way of the dodo, because I do think they are a better system than just allowing you to pick and choose what skills you want, because it just leads to people figuring out what are the best ones, only getting them ones, and just blitzing the game. Can't believe I'm doing this, but comparing it to something like Dead Island, it actually gives a much better feeling of progression, having to pick, say, weaker skills at the beginning that slowly build your character up, instead of immediately being able to level up in a drastic way that Far Cry 5 allows you to. One of the most broken things in this game is the ability to have 2 followers. You can have 2 of them, and that's an upgrade. And once you get 2 of them, they can clear bases for you on their own. You will never die because you have 2 companions who can revive you. It's a problem in my eyes because it just makes the game either too simple or too easy in a way. And as I said, it devalues certain parts of the game, making them feel like afterthoughts than actual core activities in the game. Now, actually getting around Hope County though, there is a shit ton of vehicles that you can choose from cars to helis, planes and boats, but I'm going to be completely honest with you, I don't understand why Far Cry is pushing these more and more in recent games. Vehicles to me have always been a side thing, a cool addition that the Far Cry games have had. Cars to get around, jet skis to traverse water, but in Far Cry 5, they went a lot further with it. Planes and helicopters completely defeat the game entirely because you can just bomb everything. You can destroy outposts in seconds. There's no thinking. You can just shoot rockets at them. The new unique vehicles to me kind of just don't really work because they're just very boring. Like, unfortunately, Halo did a Warthog in like 2001, and now a truck with a gun on the back of it isn't that cool and isn't that exciting. And when you're playing the game in solo, these things just don't really hit the same way. The game has an entire like garage system where you can buy cars and planes and everything, but I didn't spend any of my money on it, mainly because the game gives you a shit ton of stuff if you have like the premium edition of the game, which I got at dirt cheap on a sale, and within this you get one of the best helicopters in the game. So if you just use that, there's no reason to engage again with any of the other stuff. This is actually a problem I actually have entirely with a lot of games Ultimate Editions and Game of the Year Edition, when they give you premium like enhanced things in the game that kind of skip parts of the game. This game does it, but again, other games do it a lot. RDR2 did it with the brown Arabian horse, which was seen as a mid-tier horse. I'm an RDO expert. That horse basically beats every horse you can get up to about level 60, level 70-ish, I would say. That's when you get horses that are kind of on par with it, but at that point you'll have so much money that there's no reason to buy another horse. you'll have every gun you need and everything. It just kind of defeats like the progression that the game has, and it just isn't very fun. Even in the story mode of RDR2 as well, by the way, when I was replaying the game a bit, you get access to a late game horse. A core part of RDR to me was actually finding a horse you liked, like finding it in the wild, following it, trying to wrangle it, make it be your friend, take it back to the stable, get it a nice saddle. That's a core part of that like game and progression. Giving you a great horse out the gate just doesn't work for me, and games still do it, and Far Cry 5 does it here, and it means that spending your money on cars and planes and helicopters feels pointless. It feels like a waste of money. Don't even get me started on all the fucking guns that you can buy like without even having to progress the game, because certain guns are locked behind progression within the county, like the 3 tiers that you have to do for each part. You have to do so many to unlock certain guns. The big sniper that I really liked, you had to do all of the game. You had to beat the entire game to get it. But you can buy a special variant of the gun for like 12 grand and get it at the beginning of the game. It makes the game way too easy in my opinion, because if you just run around hunting for a bit, you can get as many guns as you want and all the vehicles you want without even doing anything. Now the guns for hire mechanic is kind of cool, but it does make the game way too easy. There is 12 of them, and I was going to go over all of them and what they do, but like they're not that interesting. One's a dog, one's a bear, one's a panther, one has a helicopter, and one has a fucking plane. They're the only 5 that you will ever find yourself using. The other ones are just useless. Other than Herc, but Herc sometimes shoots objectives which cannot be destroyed, so he's a bit of a liability at times. He has a rocket launcher. But like Sharky, the girl with the sniper, the girl with the bow, they're all just kind of meh. Nick Rye completely breaks the game, as he can clear outposts on his own without being dealt with at all because he's in a fucking plane. The bear will just tank shit because it's a fucking bear and the enemies won't be able to do anything to it. They're fun, but they completely change the way the game plays and often make it way too easy. Like, it's fun, like, pointing the dog to go kill someone, like in Metal Gear Solid 5, when you'd point DD to kill someone, or when you'd point out to Quiet to shoot that guy and then shoot that guy and like slowly pick them off with your like sniping companion. But in this game, they just don't work, and like instructing them is so frustrating. I really thought this sniper girl would be way better, but my god, you would tell her to shoot someone and she would run straight at them, alert all of them, and then just start shooting at like mid-range. Sharky wouldn't even shoot them. He has a shotgun, and instead of shooting them with it, he would run up to them and hit them with it, throwing smoke grenades at them. Some of them don't work, and then some of them are way too strong. Oh yeah, fission's in the game as well, by the way. It's pretty good. But with us having obtained any guns, vehicles, making drugs and bombs, and maybe even getting some little recruitable characters and friends, we can do some of the main quests in the area, such as helping out Merle and taking back a specific outpost, saving the dog Boomer, who again will give us a shit ton of reputation bonus, and my god, this game was definitely written in 2016 because dog called Boomer has even a fucking bear called Cheeseburger. But our main set of missions will focus on helping out the town of Fool's End, and liberating it, we can meet Jerome Jeffries, the father of the church here, and some of the other residents of Fool's End, who all will give you their own quests that you have to go out and deal with to help them liberate and get some things that the cult took from them. But eventually, we will reach the point where John will decide that he has had enough of our little rampant activities, and he will decide that he wants to come and cleanse us first by capturing us. And then we are taken to be baptized and cleansed by John.
No. Don't seem very worthy.
It is not for us to judge. Deliver them unto the waters. The cleansing begins tonight.
In the light of God, and walk through his gates unto Eden. Not this one.
This one's not clean.
Cleansing, John.
John, to me, is probably, in my opinion, the most scary of the seeds, as he is clearly more unhinged than his older brother, letting his sin that he's been marked by completely consume him. Wrath. Almost drowning us, the player, wanting us to be killed, but Joseph pulls him back, wanting him to save us.
No, Joseph.
You have to love them, John. Do not let your sin prevent that. Bring that one to me. Despite all that you have done, you are not beyond salvation. You're not here by accident or by chance. You are here by the grace of God. You've been given a gift. Now it remains to be seen whether you choose to embrace it or to cast it aside. This one shall reach the atonement, while the gates of Eden shall be shut to you, John.
Yes, Joseph. You will confess every sin you've ever committed, no matter how petty, no matter how small. I will pull from you. Then we'll see if you're worthy of atonement.
Telling him that he needs to embrace us and allow us to embrace the cult. And even Joseph states to John that he must atone for what he has done in the past, and if he fails doing that by not saving us and bringing us in, that he will not be welcomed into Eden. Even Joseph knows John isn't as forgiving as him, and he needs to test him. He needs to give an objective to prove his faith and that he genuinely believes the scripture and messages that Joseph is spreading. We can see that John does not like us. He definitely is the one that hates us the most for what we have done and what we stand for, as we represent the old world. We represent society as it is now, the society that is destroying the world. And if he was allowed, he would kill us, with only Joseph being the reason that we probably are still alive. John is a very interesting character, as he was once a man of law. He was a lawyer, and a high-achieving lawyer at that, from Atlanta. But his childhood is rather tragic, as all of the Seeds' childhoods were. The Seeds were all orphaned at a young age. After John was beaten so badly by their father, their teachers noticed what happened, leading to all of the Seeds being taken away and their father being arrested. Their mother was absent for basically all of their lives. This led to all three of the brothers being sent to an orphanage, and they would float between homes, but an action by Jacob caused all of them to be looked at by psychiatrists, and it was deemed that they were all dangerous. It never states what these kids had wrong with them, but I think it's meant to be implied that potentially they're psychopaths. Well, they're either psychopaths or sociopaths. I am not a psychology expert. I studied it for a few years in sixth form, but it's clear that they're one of these. But due to this, all of the brothers were separated, with Jacob's seed being the one that set a barn on fire, which led to them all being investigated, being sent to juvie. And John and Joseph were separated to different families. Joseph was bounced around from different foster families, eventually just finding himself mostly being in the orphanage alone, and John was sent to a specific family who I think did keep him and did raise him for most of his life, that being the Duncan family, who were not that kind on him, as it is heavily implied that he was abused by this family as well. And this is a almost tragic story that is very, very real. This is seen a lot, especially I think within the US, is a lot of foster kids who are bounced around between families. They often don't get as lucky. They find themselves in the care of people who are not kind, who are abusive, and often sometimes even make a worse environment for them to grow up in than the one that they came from. Sometimes kids are taken away from parents who say abused drugs or alcohol but were never violent to them. They always cared for them. But when they go to these new homes, sometimes they are abused, they are violent with them, and they don't treat them like they are children. This makes John tragic in a way, because he is described as wanting to please people and he wants to prove himself. We see it now where he wants to prove himself to Joseph. He is the younger brother after all, but the whole time throughout his entire life, he has just been used. And because of this, because of his abusive childhood, as John grew up, he did become successful. He became a very high-paid, well-established lawyer, attending one of the most prestigious universities, graduating at the top of his class, and he was one of the fastest rising lawyers within Atlanta, becoming incredibly wealthy, incredibly quickly, and also very well connected in the higher level of society. And despite his success coming from such a tragic beginning and coming most likely from nothing, despite this success that he had, he hated himself. And he also hated what society allowed to happen to him, what society turned him into, what thoughts he had, and what society did and what society took away from him, took his childhood from him. He had this deep-rooted hatred within inside of him for everything around him, for the entire world and every person that was around him. John was putting on a fake life. He was basically trying to please society and be seen as a good person, but he knows he isn't. He was abused and punished by society for no real reason, just because he was born to the wrong people and his parents were bad people, and the foster family he was given to were also bad people. He's been punished so much, and even though this has all happened, he's trying to be a good person. And despite him achieving this, being a person that has achieved what society wants you to, have a good paying job, make money, he hates it. He hates that he has to be this person. And very quickly in his adult life, John quickly became addicted to certain earthly vices, mainly his addiction to sex and alcohol. I'm sure you can see where this is going. It's implied a lot in many notes that you can find, and also stories, and also within the pre-order bonus, the Book of Joseph, which is an entire fake Bible that Joseph wrote, describes John's adult life as he abused alcohol and abused his lovers, just like his parents did, just like his father did when he was a young boy. That wrath was still within him, and he was dishing it out to those that he said he loved. Almost an allegory how trauma is passed down and spread throughout society. Just because you attack someone and spread hatred to one person means most likely that they will spread it to another person, and it will just keep going and going and going. One small action can lead to a wildfire starting, and John is the embodiment of that. But eventually Joseph would find John years later as they would reconnect, as John came back to be the lawyer associated with the sale of his father's house, something along those lines, and this would lead Joseph to tell him of his plan for Eden's Gate and ask him to become their confessor. A very important role, and the role that would have him in the main seat of spreading the word and basically being the outreach of the cult, finding new members and bringing them in so Joseph can turn them to their side. And upon John reaching Hope County, the place I'm guessing Joseph chose for them to set up as the main place for the cult, John used his wealth and legal know-how to buy out mass amounts of land extremely quickly, and they were basically able to do this very easily, navigating the political climate of the county with very little legal issues arising when buying land, buildings, whatever. This almost explains how the cult was just able to infiltrate the county with little to no resistance, which is explained in the opening, where people said that there was no problems when they first came, but they just seemed to keep growing and growing with no pushback whatsoever, to the point where once there was a problem, they couldn't stop them. And this is mainly most likely due to John. John is the most charismatic one of the brothers. He is the one that would be able to sweet talk and worm his way through almost anything and get basically anything he wanted for the cult. And I'm guessing he was able to infiltrate and manipulate the many government officials associated with this area. I don't know if they would be senators, mayors, or whatever. I'm British, so I wouldn't know. But this would also explain how they got the cops on their side as well, keeping the authorities off their back, again mentioned in the opening. And now, with John having fulfilled this role of basically getting their foot in the door and allowing the cult to expand, he is now the one that helps those who have joined the cult to wash the sins off of themselves so that they can atone for their sins. And normally this is done via something like confession, which is sort of a very personal and, I would say, difficult thing to talk through. John has a different way of doing it, a much more drastic measure, which we will see as time goes on. But after being baptized, we are put in a truck to be taken somewhere to admit to our sins. But of course, someone comes to save us.
Show them no mercy.
Jerome and his troops, and we storm his facility. I'll be honest, it's just a lot of shooting, so we're just going to skip over it because we just shoot some things, blow some stuff up, and then we leave. But after doing that, we are free of John's capture, and we again can be let free into the county again to cause a little bit more of a ruckus and do some more quests, eventually fulfilling the next level requirement, which we are again taken to John to be tortured by him this time.
That is not the will of the Father. Take them to John. He's ready to hear their confession.
My parents were the first ones to teach me about the power of yes. One night, they took me into the kitchen and they threw me on the ground. And I experienced pain after pain after pain after pain. And when I didn't think I could take any more, I did. Something broke free inside. I wasn't scared, I was clear. I looked up at them. I started to laugh. All I could say was, yes. I spent my entire life looking for more things to say yes to. I opened every hole in my body, and when those were filled, I created more. But it was Joseph who showed me just how selfish I was being. Always always taking. The best gift isn't the one you get, it's the one you give. Giving takes courage. Courage to own your sin, to etch it onto your flesh and carry its burden. And when you have endured, when you have truly begun to atone, to cut it out like a cancer and display it for all to see. My God, that's courage. I'm going to teach you courage. Teach you how to say yes, so you can confront your weaknesses, confront your sins. You will swim across an ocean of pain and emerge free. For only then can you truly begin to atone.
This scene's a bit different because John wants us to admit to our sins. He wants us to say yes. It's a really interesting moment, and it does make you question, what the fuck is John doing? Now, why does he want us to say yes? Why does he want us to admit to sins that maybe we haven't committed? I mean, we have definitely sinned at this point. I'm sure pelting a fucking shovel at a guy's head and caving it in is a bit of a sin. But why does he want us to say yes? Why is he so obsessed with yes? Basically, by saying yes, you abandon entirely your self-control and submit to Joseph Seed and his idea of what the cult is. You completely surrender your own free will and accept that what the cult is saying about you is right. But also, I think it's almost a way that John wants to feel like he is meant to do what he's about to do to us. Clearly, he's about to do something very brutal to us, almost butcher-like to us. And if we don't say yes, we have committed these sins and accept that we have, the pain and punishment that will be enacted upon us isn't right. We won't see it as a punishment for our sins. We will see it as John enacting some sort of fury upon us. So him wanting us to say yes is basically him wanting us to tell him to punish us for doing what we did. It's a really fucked moment and really does show completely how deranged John is and how lost he is entirely, because he's forcing these sins upon us. He's telling us this is what we have done and we need to atone for them, and he needs us to basically give permission to allow him to force us and do something to us so that we can atone for these sins. This is what he does to everyone, and we see that throughout all of Far Cry 5. We hear that he makes these people atone for their sins in brutal ways, and we can see that. But after fulfilling John's desire and giving consent to him by saying, of course, yes!
Yes! Yes! You're not gonna regret this. Now, before we begin, I think it's only proper that Deputy Hudson goes back to her room. Confessions are meant to be private, after all. I am not here to take your life. I'm here to give it to you. I'm going to open you. Pour your worst fears inside, and as you choke, your sins will reveal themselves. Only then will you truly understand the power of yes. I'll be right back.
He takes Hudson away so that we can get some privacy and a bit of a one-on-one time with him. But at this time, we start to make our grand escape by using some stairs and throwing ourselves down them. But man, I love John. He himself, to me, could be a main villain in a Far Cry game. He is so deranged and a complete fucking lunatic, but you can see what led him to this place, and I think that makes him such an interesting character. Diva does such a good job of playing John and playing this person who is just completely lost in who he is actually meant to be, that he just demands your attention when he's on screen, and to me, he is just as good as many of the other Far Cry villains. In my opinion, even better than some of the main villains in other games. It's why I say I think he could be his own main villain, and it's almost a shame that he isn't. But this is something that Far Cry 5 does really well, is instead of having 1 or 2 villains that have 15 minutes of screen time, it has 4 who are all really interesting and are just as narratively complex and deep as one another. But within this scene previous, we see that John was again talking about his childhood and how his parents would keep hurting him far beyond anything that he could take. He would get to the point where he couldn't take anymore, and they would again keep beating him, reinforcing the tragic childhood that these seeds seemingly were all exposed to. And this is the thing that I find most interesting about Far Cry 5. All of its villains aren't really villains. They aren't evil, bad people. I mean, all of the antagonists in Far Cry do kind of have these tragic pasts in a way. Vars is mentioned to have some form of tragic past. Hoyt is more of just an arsehole, and Pagan Min, his own daughter, was killed by the main protagonist's father, which explains his actions. But Far Cry 5 is very different in a way. These aren't people who have had something bad happen to them who then decide to take some drastic action against it. These are people who have been exposed to some extreme trauma and have been completely broken by it. These aren't bad people. They weren't always bad people. They have been turned into who they are now by the world around them. Yes, they have done some evil things. I'm sure the people that are on the side of the road crucified would say that they are evil people, but it's clear that they aren't traditional antagonists. They aren't just forces of evil. They are creations of the very society and the very world that we are sided with, the very world that we came here for, the world that wanted to arrest Joseph Seed for who he was, even though they made him who he is. It's a very interesting narrative that, of course, makes you question, are the Seeds the bad people? Are they the real villains here, or is there an actual villain above them that made them, that is the reason that they're like this? Is there something else that we should do to try prevent this from happening again? But of course, we never get that because there is nothing we can do about that. But if you look at the game up to this far and you say flip the perspective to the side of the cult, I'm sure the cult members see us almost as like the Covenant saw fucking Master Chief in the Halo series. Yes, on the side of the cops, the sheriff, and everyone that is living within Hope County, we are the Spartan that will save them. But the cult members have chosen this life, and they are now being exposed to some extreme violence from the player's side. They would literally be standing there just chilling out, doing what they've been told to, and a 50 BMG will be fired at their head, blowing their head clean off just because of who they are. We are the villain in their eyes. We aren't really responding in a, I guess, nice way, and we aren't being fair on who we are attacking. We are killing so many people in such brutal ways because they're associated with the cult. It's almost like this is like an allegory for something. But again, we were the initial aggressors. We were the one that started this entire game and the events in motion. We were the one that broke the first seal and tried to conquer the cult. We were the one that started this war, and even though the cult is technically just defending themselves, we are responding with such violence that the cult members even fear us now at this point. We are killing and blowing up and destroying all of these things in the pursuit of justice for, again, the system that ruined the entire Seed's lives. We represent that system. We are the evil that this cult fears, the old world which will try to control them and keep them in, and they don't want to. They are just like us. They are just as stubborn as us in a way. They will keep fighting against us in the same way that we will keep fighting against the cult to try free Hope County. But again, after throwing ourselves down the stairs, we can now escape our bindings and try to actually escape and cause a little bit of chaos, of course, as we make our way out, taking out as many Peggies and even saving a few prisoners in the meantime, including trying to save Hudson. But of course, we can't just yet.
I know your sin. It drives you. Every thought, every action. Your sin is wrath. So, I'll indulge you. Become wrath. Let it fill your body and consume your soul, because in the end, you'll still be empty. And I'll be waiting right here. We both will.
And John has figured out our true sin. It is wrath, and he wants us to indulge in a bit of wrath to wreak more havoc so that we can see our sin. Keep doing what we are doing and he will come to us so that he can absolve us of that sin. And I mean, again, he isn't really wrong. We've just been killing hundreds of people at this point. Again, throwing shit at people so hard that they get launched. Maybe we are the bad guy. Maybe we are. But with a time limit, we need to quickly escape the bunker, now finding ourselves shooting a bunch of zombie guys, or angels as the cult calls them, people completely addicted to the bliss who will just try to run us down, and gunning our way through all of them. We fully escape, now again needing to indulge in a bit of wrath to lure John out. And upon doing so, he will make his way to the town of Fool's End to deal with the people's sins there, and we can go join them in the church.
Hold still. It's supposed to say wrath, not rat. Sin must be exposed so it may be absolved. If we hide our sin, we hide ourselves. You will not hide any longer. Your true self will spill out on this floor for all to see. Perfect. If Muhammad won't come to the mountain, then bring the mountain to Muhammad. Let's begin! I thought a friendly face might make your atonement easier. Our devoted. We are gathered here to bear witness.
You son of a bitch!
Let's try that again. Our devoted, we are gathered here to bear witness.
Our devoted, we are gathered here to bear witness.
To those willing to atone for their sins.
To those willing to atone for their sins.
Will you, Nick Rye, place your hand upon the word of Joseph?
Will you, Nick Rye?
Oh, fuck that. No, I ain't never given in to that psychopath.
There it is. Greed. Always thinking of yourself. Nick?
Yes. Yes, I will atone.
It's the power of yes!
The power to take away your sins! The power to set you free. Deputy, place your hand upon the word of Joseph.
Will you, Deputy, place your hand upon the word of Joseph?
Renounce your sins and admit your transgressions.
And renounce your sins and admit your transgressions. Say yes.
And with Jerome having switched out the Bible, you might remember there being a gun within that Bible. So saying yes, we can actually grab the gun and start shooting and fighting back against John and the cult members around him. Eventually chasing him back to his ranch, in which he begins to fly away on his plane. So we give chase and dogfighting ensues, and somehow, even once we force his plane to crash land, he survives the crash by jumping out and parachuting, but after that, we of course shoot him to death.
What if Joseph is right? Did you ever stop to think about that? Everyone thinks he's crazy, but he's not. Look around you. This world is on the brink. You can feel it in your bones. Look at the headlines. Look who's in charge. You want this key? Because you think you're saving people, but they are already safe. We had a plan. You don't understand. You don't believe. You don't care! May God have mercy on your soul.
From John's final words, I think it's very obvious what he is meant to represent. He represents what the rider famine brings. Famine often is believed to be the starvation of people by the removal of food, but famine in the modern interpretation and what it would mean now would be very different. Famine means that something becomes scarce. Often people believe that was food, mass starvation coming, but I think now something a little bit different, starving humanity of the basic needs that they have always had and reducing them to almost a previous era of society, depriving people of what they feel like they need to have to live their lives. Famine is often depicted as holding scales, and I think this is more meant to represent that the scales and amount of something change within people's lives, and having that amount removed or manipulated with will cause people to suffer a lot and start questioning their own lives. And John is the one that's been doing this the entire time, not only having bought up a shit ton of land within Hope County, limiting the movement and also potential for people to expand within the county, but also buying food, farmland, water, everything. He's been acquiring as much as possible to make people's lives a living hell if they don't join the cult. Even starving them spiritually, demanding them to say yes to sins, telling them that they are wrong, telling them that they've done something sinful when they need to atone for it, making them feel like they are doing something wrong. He starves them spiritually to the point where they feel like they need to accept Eden's Gate as the way forward. He pushes the scales further and further until it feels like there's this just unbearable weight on someone's soul and they need to atone. And we see that with a character like Nick Rye, who initially is completely resistant to John, but he whispers one thing within his ear and he immediately accepts his sins and has them removed. It's clear that's what he is meant to represent, famine. He was the one who starved the area to the point of accepting the cult as that was the only option to them now, forcing them down the path that we are currently going down. He has tipped the scales so far that there is no way to tip them back. Well, there wasn't until we arrived. But with this key, we can now go back to the bunker and head inside and free everyone trapped in the bunker, including Hudson.
Oh, God.
God damn, what a nice lady. It's clear that she isn't very happy with what happened and she wants Joseph Seed dead, and we follow her as she starts to destroy the entire place. Seems like a bit much if you ask me, but who cares? We should just escape and save any other prisoners that we find along the way and blow up the whole joint. Seems that she might be giving into a bit of wrath herself, or maybe she is the one truly starting the war with the cult. And you might notice that this bunker has parts which appear to be a missile silo. Bit of a weird thing for the cult to be in possession of, but after killing a few more people and liberating the region, we celebrate with the many friends that we made during our time within this specific region. How very nice.
A seal has been opened. My brother John was loved by few, feared by many, misunderstood by all, except me. John was not born a monster. He was just a child when our family was torn apart. He was loving, kind, and full of joy. He was easily preyed upon. John was not perfect. And sometimes he was not even good. But he was my brother. And those responsible for his death will be punished. I promise you that.
I fucking love this scene because it does a really good job of making you feel like shit and feel guilty for what we did. We took Joseph's brother and just killed him, and he promises vengeance upon us. We truly have unleashed war upon ourselves, and there is no going back at this point. And what I find most interesting is, despite everything the Seeds have done, they haven't really killed anyone that we know of. I mean, yeah, we can see the people on the roadside that they've killed and crucified, but we don't actually know anyone that the cult themselves have killed that we know of. There are missions where they'll have hostages and they'll kill them if you try to free them, but the actual Seed siblings, people call them psychos and everything, and they probably are, but they themselves haven't actually killed anyone that we know. John didn't kill Hudson. We don't know about Pratt and if he's been killed. The Marshal seems to still be alive, and we don't know where White Horse is. Again, we were the aggressors in this war, making you question, are we the bad guys? Are we handling this situation the best way? And that's a question that the game will always bring up to you. Is this how this situation should be dealt with? Can everything be solved with bullets and fire? But Joseph does reinforce the point again that John wasn't always how he was. Society made him who he is now and is punishing him for who he became. And now we are society itself, and we punished John for who he became. We killed him because of who he is. But with John dead, I guess we can move along to our next region now, and we're now going to head on up to the Whitetail Mountains. Now, the biggest gameplay difference that I noticed in this part of the map is the change from the filled, nice, simple, flat areas that were in John's region to now everything being a fucking hill and trees being everywhere. But also, there are patrols walking everywhere. It seemed like every 5 minutes I was bumping into enemies that I had to fight, be it on the roads or even in the woods, just hunters with bows walking around who will just start attacking you, as well as their dogs. And this section I found myself sneaking a lot more, often scouting out and using the binoculars a lot more to see if there's enemies nearby. And I find myself using a lot more long-range rifles within this section, and I really like the sniper gameplay in this game. But of course, like the previous area, we cause again a little bit more chaos, blowing up some bases, rescuing some hostages, rescuing a bear called Cheeseburger, or helping a man who wants to run for the Senate.
You see that steaming pile of disappointment over there praying? That's my loin fruit, Hurt Jr. Dumber than a coal bucket. He takes after his mama. Stupid sumbitch went and lost my campaign truck, Nancy. So named after the greatest first lady to ever serve this fine country, of course. If them Obama-loving libtards find out I can't look after my own property, I can kiss this Senate run goodbye.
What a nice man. But eventually, of course, we will catch the ire of Jacob and he will come for us with his hunters knocking us out.
You shouldn't have come for me. Should have run. The world is weak. Soft. We have forgotten what it is to be strong. You know, our heroes used to be gods. And now our heroes are godless. Weak. Feeble. Diseased. We let the weak dictate to the powerful, and then we are shocked to find ourselves adrift. But history knows the value of sacrifice, of culling the herd so that it stays strong. Over and over, the lives of the many have outweighed the lives of the few. This is how we survived, and we've forgotten. And now, the bill has come due. Now, the collapse is upon us. And this time, the lives of the few outweigh the lives of the many. And when a nation that's never known hunger or desperation descends into madness, we'll be ready. We will cull the herd. We will do what needs to be done.
If I find John the most terrifying, I find Jacob the most interesting out of the Seed family, as he is an ex-military member, having once been a part of the US military as a marksman, but now he's become obsessed with the idea of the survival of the fittest, believing that only the strong deserve to live, and in the end, the strong will need to kill the weak to ensure that the world stays balanced. And he also believes that an end is coming, and he knows that only the strong will be worthy of being kept alive and also will be able to be kept alive. Only the strong will be worthy of the few resources that will be left amongst people as famine sets in, which is why the cult was collecting so many resources. They believe that they are stronger and they deserve to live, and they will fight to keep all the resources, and Jacob will train these people to make sure that they can fight. But now Jacob will train us to be one of his own attack dogs, to become a weapon for him with its own purpose. Having been brainwashed, or I guess psychologically conditioned, we will have a very violent reaction to a certain copywritten song. I cannot play the song, but it's Only You by the Platters, and we have a very violent reaction to it. Upon hearing this song, we'll be transported into another room and we'll be instructed to cull the weak. And we enter a kill room exercise, basically the kill room from COD 4. Grab a gun, shoot anything that moves, and run through the building on a time limit. It seems that Jacob is training us to do something. What that is, we don't know yet, but we just run through it, because if we don't, we fail and we can't continue with the game. So you will basically be forced into doing it. But most people will probably just do it without any question, almost a reflection to the player, asking why are we so willing to commit such violent actions and just do what Jacob is telling us without thinking. But upon completing the kill room, we find ourselves being saved by some kind people. We have been saved by Eli and the Whitetail Militia, the main resistance faction within the Whitetail Mountains, and we are not exactly welcomed by these people here, unlike the people of Fall's End.
Are you out of your fucking mind?
Now hold on, Weedy and I agree.
Oh, you agree?
Whoa, I was at best an impartial observer.
This is stupid. And this is dangerous. You both know better.
What was I supposed to do?
Leave him to die.
Tammy,
They are more wary of us, wary of what we've become under Jacob. But here we get a little bit of rest, and after waking, we can now do some quests for the militia people, helping them fight against Jacob, and of course build up that resistance, which we'll do for a few more hours until again Jacob decides that he wants to bring us back into his compound to train us again.
One of you will be strong. Not again.
Yeah, your peaches. I know you are in pain. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh, huh? You're not the only one to be tested. Did you know that I had a wife? So beautiful, isn't she? We were pregnant with our first child. And we were just babies ourselves, really. And I was terrified. I'm becoming a father, mostly about money. She wasn't worried. She had faith that things were going to work out. She always had faith. And one day she was going to go visit a friend. There was an accident. The Lord take it. They rushed me to a hospital and put me in a room with this little pink bundle stuffed with tubes. And they said that I had to be strong because my little girl was going to live. God was looking out for our daughter. And they left me alone in the room with her. I just stared at my daughter. So helpless, so innocent. And all she had in the world was me. A nobody from nowhere with nothing. And in that moment, I knew that God was testing me. He was laying out a path before me, and all I had to do was choose. So I put my hand on my little girl's head, and I leaned in and I could smell. And we prayed together. Prayed for wisdom. Prayed for strength. I heard God's plan for me. So I took my fingers and I put them on that little plastic tube that was taped to her angelic face, and I pinched it shut. And after a little while, her legs began to kick and kick. And then nothing. Stillness. Release. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh. Pain, sacrifice, these are all part of His test. And we have to prove that we can serve God, no matter what He asks.
I love this scene because I truly do believe it shows how far Joseph has fallen. Comparing our pain and feelings of loss that we are feeling because of our loss of our colleagues, I guess, him comparing it to the loss of his firstborn daughter. The daughter he killed because he believed God was testing him, asking him to let her go because she was weak, she was in an accident, and again, Cole the weak. But why did Joseph do this? Why did he believe God was testing him? And why is he making Jacob instill this message within people? Why is Cole the Weak a core doctrine of the cult? Well, for one, they do believe the end of the world is coming, and I'm guessing they want to ensure that only people that are of some value and aren't a liability will get to the resources that they have been collecting. But where in the Bible has Joseph pulled this from? Where does he believe God got this from? Why does he think this is a test from God? Well, this entire experience, and many people, I think, rightly do connect this theme in the story to the story of Abraham and his son Isaac, when God requested and asked Abraham to let Isaac go or sacrifice him to prove his faith to God. And many people believe that this is what the game is mirroring. This is the message that Joseph believes God is asking of him. And I think many people kind of don't realize that I think this is meant to show a crack in Joseph's faith, that he himself doesn't question God at all. Joseph might believe that God was giving him the same test as Abraham, a man that was completely faithful to God and was the embodiment of faith itself. But I think there is a difference here within the test. Abraham and Joseph are two completely different characters. No shit, but they come from two completely different places. Abraham is often described and believed to be extraordinarily wealthy and heavenly blessed within life. He was so well off that it was believed that God himself was gifting him all of the things he had. Abraham at the time had many different animals, he had a lot of money, he was blessed with having a healthy family, which at the time wasn't a guarantee. The reason I kind of interpret, I have read it again, I'm not Christian, I interpret why God wanted to test Abraham in this way of sacrificing his son is, I think it's a very traditional thing that a man's son is one of their biggest prides. It is one of their most beloved possessions. And Isaac was his second son. So having him basically asked Abraham to sacrifice one of his sons was seen as him giving up one of the things that he might have valued the most, one of his children. Now, at the time, of course, when this story takes place, sacrifice to the gods was a very common thing. People believed that sacrificing some living thing to the gods would prove their faith in a way, if you will. It would show that they're fully willing, and that's why Abraham was so willing to do it. It was a normal thing to do, but his unquestioning, go straight for it, proved to God that he was a man of true faith, that he was so willing to just give up his son that quickly. And that's why God stopped him immediately. Even though Abraham had everything and he could selfishly say to God that I don't want to give my son away, he still chose to. He still chose to give away something that he might have valued over everything else. But Joseph is different. Joseph has nothing. He's had everything in his life pulled apart from him. His mother abandoned him when he was younger. His father beat his brothers until he was no longer allowed to be around them, and the brothers were then put in orphanages where they were then split apart, and Joseph was stripped of a basic childhood. He was never shown true love and given any sort of warmth from a family. And even now, in this part of his story, the reason he is in this situation is because his wife was in an accident, which led to the baby also being in the state it is found in now. His wife also is implied to have died in this accident. He lost everything. And in this moment, he now believes that God is again asking him to give him his own daughter. The phrase that he says, "The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh," is an interesting one, because the Lord hasn't given him anything. Yes, you could argue that he's given him a wife that he loved and a daughter for maybe a couple of hours, but why would God just take everything away from Joseph? And how would Joseph be able to truly embody all of God's teachings if he is never allowed to actually love anything? I don't think the message that God, if there was one here, he was trying to show to Joseph wasn't about giving up everything. I think it was more of a question of Joseph has seen the worst and experienced the most terrible fate that most people will ever have to live. He's experienced a life that no one should ever have to in the modern world. And I think the question and the test God was showing him was if he can still love someone and show them warmth even after all of that. Can he be the embodiment of that? Can he, even in great darkness, still give light. And in this moment, he fails that test. That's why his daughter isn't saved. That's why God doesn't prevent him from killing and sacrificing his own daughter like he did with Abraham. His answer wasn't to sacrifice his child. It was to choose to love her no matter what. And once you look at Joseph in this way, that maybe he was someone that misinterpreted God's lessons and tests, it does sort of give and explain a lot about what Joseph is doing. Throughout Far Cry 5, Joseph treats and states that suffering is something that needs to be escaped, removed, or controlled. That's what his entire cult does, with the bliss, with removing sins and forcing people to confess to them, with John literally ripping them off of people. He wants people to not suffer. He wants to control them that they won't ever suffer again. And he wants to do this by eliminating that suffering entirely, by making sure that they survive the end of the world and can all live in happiness, all live in bliss and in ignorance. He wants to eliminate the source of that suffering entirely, the society that's been built up in this world, in our world. And I think that moment with his daughter was when he learnt the wrong lesson, or when he answered the question wrong, and God was never actually talking to him. He was just misguided the entire time. I don't think the test was, can you let go of her? It was more, can you love her enough to stay and help her be strong? Can you keep going despite all that you have lost? And can you remain faithful and help raise her to be faithful, even though I have taken everything else from you? I think that is what the question that God was raising to him. So basically the entire story of Far Cry 5 becomes the story of a man who spent his entire life building a philosophy around a misunderstanding. Joseph lost everything except his faith to God, but maybe he isn't truly understanding what God is asking of him at all, and that makes me love this scene so much more because he clearly shows he regrets it. He regrets killing his daughter, but he is so faithful that he will keep going. And now again, after listening to the copywritten song, we enter another kill room again and cull the herd, but faster this time and a little bit more with some new guns. But an interesting line you might the enemies speak out to you is saying that you are no hero, a theme that will be brought up constantly throughout the rest of this game as are we the hero in this situation? Also we get a new section with a faceless person. Okay, it's a little bit different, but upon completing the kill room we find ourselves in quite the location, being like Trevor Phillips when you switch to him from a different character, being awakened in a drunk stupor with a bunch of dead bodies around you. But did we kill all these people? Surely we couldn't have. Surely we're not being brainwashed into a mindless killing machine. Anyway, blowing up more shit and doing more missions and killing more things, we will hear the music slowly start to fade in and we just pass the fuck out. Guess we had too much to drink. But meeting Jacob again, he has some more interesting things to show us.
Oh, you must be hungry. Did you know it takes 10 days for civilization to collapse? Yeah. You take away a man's basic needs and he will revert to his primordial instincts in just 10 days. That's a difficult thing to understand unless you've lived it. You know, I was in Iraq during the first Gulf War. 82nd Airborne All-Americans, hoorah! One night there was an ambush, and me and this guy named Miller got separated from the unit. No food, no radio. Nearest base, 200 clicks to the south, so we just started walking. Well, by the third day I knew we were lost. Day 6, ran out of water. You know what that's like, don't you? Difficult to swallow. On the 7th day, Miller's legs started going all wonky. Did you know your brain starts to eat your muscles in order to survive? That's why you're so goddamn skinny. And by the 8th day, the wolves were closing in. And I looked at Miller and I could tell we were as good as dead. And I accepted that. And in that acceptance came clarity. You see, I wasn't just looking at Miller. I was looking at an opportunity. It wasn't something I wanted. It was something that I had to do. It was my test. You see, Miller's sacrifice wasn't about me walking out of that desert. It was about bringing me here. The weak have their purpose. You'll understand that soon enough.
I find this scene interesting because I think Jacob is showing us that even us, someone who came here to enact justice, will easily turn into a mindless animal if we are depraved or forced into a specific situation, almost questioning the player on why we are doing all of this. Why did we immediately act with such hostility, and why are we engaging with these kill rooms? Why are we so willing to act with violence? Again, a fairly smart thing to make the player question, what is the point of doing all of this? Which is an interesting narrative point. You question, is this violence really necessary? What does violence in video games really lead to? Is it a problem? No. But it does make you question, why didn't we just leave in the beginning? Why, even after getting the good ending, do we carry on? Well, it's pretty fucking fun, isn't it? But it makes you question whether you are actually a hero in this situation or someone that's doing this more for fun. You're not actually enacting justice, you're just sort of doing it for a bit of the thrill. And this is something that Far Cry games have dived into, mainly Far Cry 3, with Jason Brody going from someone who just wanted to save his friends and escape to then remaining on the island because he believes he belongs there. Almost that he is so fulfilled by the violence and the adrenaline that he can't leave. It's a drug he can't escape. And I think this is something that Far Cry games do want you to question, whether the violence itself is the reason that you're playing or the goal that you're trying to achieve is the reason you're doing all that violence. And I think Far Cry 5 does a really good job of that, with Jacob turning us into a weapon for his own needs and reasons. And it makes you question what this kill room will lead to. But as we complete this one, we are awoken by Pratt, a man with a very unfortunate second name. As to me, that means someone stupid or incompetent. A Pratt. And he definitely is a bit of a prat, with him even echoing Jacob's survival of the fittest mantra, stating someone isn't strong enough to leave and apparently we are ready to do something involving Eli. I wonder what the kill room is actually for. Surely he's not training us to then fulfill a real life kill room where he's going to drop us into it. He has trained us to do something without realizing it, almost making a Pavlovian response to Only You. When we hear the song, we will just turn into a aggressive monster. We will just repeat that same behavior. And unfortunately, before we can escape, the music begins playing and Pratt pushes us off the balcony to get on top of a lorry, knocking us out. And as we awake, we find the lorry has completely stopped and find the driver has gone for a piss. So of course, we kill the driver. And after this, causing a hell of a lot more chaos, we are again brought before Jacob again.
Don't worry, you'll be out of here soon enough. Did you think you were free? Your little buddy went to a whole lot of trouble for nothing. That's okay. He knows better now. I told you, you're not a hero. You are a tool. You know your purpose. You've known it from the beginning.
We aren't a hero. We are a tool, and all tools have a purpose. And Jacob has been creating that purpose for us, molding us into the perfect tool that he needs to fulfill a specific purpose. So running through the kill room one last time, we see our purpose, killing Eli.
Only you could make this world seem right. Only you can make the darkness bright. Only you. Hey, only you could have gotten this close. Only you could have earned his trust. It was always only ever you. Good work. You did it. You passed your test. You made major sacrifice. But now, you're alone. And you're weak. And we know what happens to the weak. I call the herd. It's what I do. I'll be outside waiting for you.
Our purpose to Jacob was to infiltrate the Whitetails and kill Eli, and now we have fulfilled that purpose. So we are a tool without a purpose. We are weak. We have no reason to be kept. But we now make a promise to the remaining Whitetails that we will get revenge for Eli by killing Jacob, giving us a new purpose. And honestly, it's quite interesting because the Whitetails would have just thrown us out if they didn't believe that we could do it. But because we have some sort of value to them, we are given the opportunity to fulfill a job. We are a weapon that can be used again. And it almost is like the Whitetails are doing the same thing that Jacob did. Obviously not in as monstrous of a way, but they're still pointing us and telling us that we need to do this thing. That is kill Jacob. This is a really great moment that makes you question your own humanity and the actions of the player and the actions that you've been taking. And if it's really necessary for you to buy that shovel launcher and just launch a shovel in a guy's chest, killing him instantly, is it really necessary to have a bear get sicked on someone and have it rip him apart or drop a fucking napalm on a guy? Is that really the level of violence that we need to fulfill our job? But heading outside now, it looks a bit different. I thought we were in fucking Montana, not Ohio. What the fuck is going on? But within this hellscape, we need to destroy all of the beacons and avoid being taken and killed by these fake Jacobs. And destroying all the beacons, we are transported back to the real world, and now we actually have to kill the real Jacob, fighting through a bunch of his men and dodging his sniper fire, slowly climbing up a mountain to reach his perch, taking him out.
Oh, my brother saw all this coming. I don't know if he talks to God. That doesn't matter. He was right. Humanity is once again in crisis. It doesn't matter what we build or achieve. We will always find a way to break it down. Babylon, Rome, empires rise, empires fall. America, we're no different. We think we're indestructible. World War II, war on terror. We survived it, but it only brought us closer to the edge. And this is where we are, right here, on schedule, just waiting for someone to push us. And oh boy, if you pushed us. You did everything he said you would do. And you didn't even know it. You had no fucking clue.
Jacob, he himself admits he doesn't fully believe what Joseph is going on about. He doesn't actually know if Joseph hears God. But in his last moments, he realizes that what Joseph told him happened exactly the way he stated. That we, the player, would hunt him down and kill him in the exact same way. Now believing 100% that Joseph did indeed hear God in his dying moments. Jacob was only doing this because he wanted some form of meaning, and he probably enjoyed actually being a military man that could just train people and do what he wanted. Joseph gave him meaning. He gave the weapon a purpose, so Jacob wasn't useless, wasn't weak. But now with Jacob dead or being injured gravely, he has no purpose. He is no longer the weapon that he once was, and thus he lets himself bleed out and die. But now with us retrieving his keys, we can go to Jacob's bunker, and within here we can save Pratt. And he has gone a bit crazy, of course.
Weak must be cold.
What a fucking prat. Very lucky that none of those bullets ricochet back into any of us, but it's clear that Pratt here is fully mirroring what Jacob was teaching, now almost embodying what Jacob was. If John created famine and starvation for the people in Hope County in multiple ways, and killing him broke a seal, killing Jacob means all his tools will be unleashed, all his prisoners will be unleashed upon the county, causing a war to spread. That is what Jacob represents, not war himself, but his death will unleash war upon the county. And escaping his bunker as it is exploding, escaping the inferno, we then meet with the Whitetails for Eli's funeral. Now, with them wanting to cull the weak, meaning they want to kill the cult entirely, we ask the question of, did we learn the right lesson here? Should we be killing all these people, and did we truly just start the war fully? Did killing Jacob really create this war and begin it? And you might question yourself, why are we killing all these people? Why are we hunting and going through each parts of the county, blowing everything up and killing anyone that we see? I know all the roads are blocked and the phone lines are down and the internet has been cut, but there are planes. We could surely just fly our way out and get help from the outside world, or even we could make our way and work to getting communications back up and running, get a phone line back up and running, restore a cell tower to allow data to be transmitted in and out of the county. Why are we just killing everyone? Why aren't we actually going out of our way to find another way to fix this problem? Are we becoming just as monstrous as the cult? And are we enjoying the chaos that is ensuing within the county?
My children, a seal has been opened. My brother Jacob was a fighter. He fought our parents. He fought the government. He fought me. But mostly he fought himself. The demons that he brought home from the war consumed him. He thought he was a weapon without a purpose. That he was a warrior without a legacy. But look around you. You are his legacy. All of you willing to protect our family from the collapse. To purge the sinful from our home. And you will, my children. You will purge the sinners from our home. Jacob's death will not be in vain.
Again, Joseph highlights the problem instilled within Jacob. Jacob, when he came back from the war, clearly had some issues, most likely PTSD, or he never felt like he belonged within normal society anymore. He always felt like he needed to be fighting, he was turned into a weapon or a tool, and he needed some form of purpose. Jacob never found a place in society after he became a weapon, but Joseph gave him that reason. He gave him that purpose. He gave the tool a purpose. Again, society punished Jacob for what they made him. He was discharged from the military and he never found a place where he felt like he belonged or deserved to be, or where he was welcomed. He was punished again for what society made him. Damn, society might be the bad guys, I can't lie. But anyway, with Jacob being dealt with, we awaken and we can hear Pratt going on about something.
Maybe we didn't survive that crash. Maybe all this is purgatory. We have to atone for all the shit we've done before we can leave this place. We have to suffer before God will grant us salvation.
Yeah, it could be that, or it could just be, crazy cult leader. But now we move on to the final area of the game, the Hebane River to find Faith Seed. The Hebane River is probably my favourite area in the game, with a slight differentiation within gameplay features. First of all, there are a lot of boats and a lot more water to traverse. It will be way more common as there is more rivers flowing throughout this area, and also that means fishing is an essential pastime within this section of the county. But the fun part about this area is the bliss that has spread all all over the river and even into the water itself. So occasionally you'll see a human who will turn into a bear, or a rabbit that turns into an angel, the zombie type enemy which are incredibly common within this area, as you will kill hundreds of them at certain points within this section. I really like this section because it really does make you question what you're seeing and if you can trust every enemy you approach, or even every friendly you approach, as sometimes a gun for hire might just turn into a wolf, because why not? But again, we need to cause as much chaos as possible, but after reaching our first target, we get drugged out and are transported into the Bliss to meet Faith herself.
I know you've heard stories about me, that I'm a liar, a manipulator, that I poison people's minds. Well, let me tell you a different story. A true story.
Faith is the most mysterious of the Seed family, mainly because she isn't a true Seed family member. Well, not by blood. The story she tells us of a woman who was ostracized by her family, friends, bullied by her friends as well, and became addicted to drugs. This is her previous life, the girl she was before she became Faith. And interestingly, in the dream, we can see a blue butterfly flying around. And you might be like me and think, oh shit, Persona reference. And yeah, it means the same thing again. This entire section is about transformation and destiny. And here we will also meet the Marshal, who is completely changed and choosing a different destiny himself. So maybe we are going to change our destiny and change how we are approaching the world itself. And we are going to go on a spiritual journey, as well as having Faith guiding us through this path. A path which will give us purpose and set us free of our past mistakes. Okay, so it seems if Jacob was about turning us into a weapon and challenging us about who we are and that we're not a hero, this one is making us question what path we're on and whether we truly believe we are a hero, if what we are doing is the right path, if that is our destiny. This section itself will entirely remove that purpose in question and question if we are a hero at all, and if we should just let go of that idea and just let ourselves go into bliss. Well, I don't know about that, but upon waking up, we find ourselves outside the prison and there is a bunch of Peggies storming it. So now we run on over to fend off the Peggies, reuniting with Officer Whitehorse. And they don't look like they're doing too sharp. And just as we get into the prison, more Peggies come to attack it. So again, we become one of the monkeys in Balloons TD, just dumping rounds and taking out enemies as they approach our base. And eventually fending off enough waves with Whitehorse will meet with us again, and we can meet the many inhabitants of the prisons, including a man who is running for mayor, who honestly is fairly important, but is not that important, a woman who doesn't trust us again, and a couple of characters that really do not matter. It's a shame that Far Cry tries to introduce loads of characters and just they never really matter. But doing many more missions for these many characters, we then reach the next checkpoint, which will be given another job, mainly to deal with the water treatment plant, which has us having to jump into these massive tankers and areas of water which are completely filled with bliss, as like Alex Jones once said, they are putting chemicals in the water and they are putting bliss in the water, so people will drink the water and thus they will be infected with bliss. So damaging the water treatment plant, we get absolutely high as a kite, but we do take the bliss out of the water, preventing it from being spread throughout the county, but we get taken into the bliss.
You've been invited into our home, into our heart. Trust in the path and you'll find the answers you seek.
And we are awoken within the bliss again, walking towards a tree in the distance, seeing Faith frolicking in the grass, and we can also see Joseph giving a speech to a couple of people, talking about the future and how once Eden is built, outsiders will come to take it away, people like us, people that will never accept them and allow them to be who they want, with Joseph believing that the old world is broken and is heading towards one future, that being destruction. And you know what, I somewhat agree with him in this kind of way. I think it now more than ever is very clear to see that if humanity is left on its own and isn't controlled in some sort of way, eventually complete destruction of one side or certain groups of people will come to pass. I think that's very clear to say now in a world where we have 3 different types of conflicts going on at the same time, i.e. Russia, Ukraine, Israel-Palestine, and now fucking US with Iran. There's a lot of shit going on, and it's clear that if shit just keeps escalating, it will just end the world. Something, Nigel Farage, you get the point. It's about division and hatred, and it really does question whether we should be doing what we're doing. Should we prevent this cult from helping each other and trying to save themselves when our own society punishes them so badly for being who they are and destroys them for being who they are, just like how certain countries will destroy another country because apparently they don't belong there. Damn, it's getting a bit political now, isn't it? But I'm sure most of what Joseph is saying, if framed in a different way, does sound like the right thing to do, that we should protect ourselves, that we should prepare for people who will try to take things away from us, that we should save ourselves from destruction. That seems normal, that seems what everyone wants to do. But who do we deem as hateful? Who do we deem as an outsider? Who wants to take and destroy us? How do we determine who is the enemy? Who do we open the gates of Eden to? That's kind of the point. Most people, I think, wouldn't believe that people like Joseph, Jacob, John, and even Faith would belong within Eden. They themselves have harmed and damaged so many people, but they still believe that they're the best suited to saving people. It's an interesting question about where you draw the line within morality and who do you choose to save. And it's a question that there is no right answer, which is kind of the interesting thing. There are people that will want other people dead, and I'm sure with how modern politics is, you see that a lot, people wishing death upon certain leaders. But just because people do bad things or things that you don't like, does that mean that they deserve to be seen as the enemy? Do they deserve to be attacked or potentially even killed because of that? Is a man who was so lost that he abused alcohol and beat his wife truly 100% evil and is not capable of righting his wrongs? Is a drug addict who is trying to recover evil? You get the point. But just because someone does something bad, does that mean they are a bad person and should be prevented from entering Eden? And do we have the right to try stop them from doing this? Do we have the right to attack and kill all these people? No is the right answer here, but why do we keep doing it? Well, it's fun, isn't it? So do we belong in Eden? Do us, the player, deserve to be allowed into Eden itself? Well, if Joseph's answer is right, he believes that yes, everyone is able to be welcomed into Eden, but only those that will accept everyone should be welcomed, which is an interesting idea that people always want to talk about being more accepting and allowing more people in, but some people won't accept others for some reason, be it race, religion, where they come from, political views. You get the point. We always want to champion togetherness and wanting to feel like we aren't against one another, but we always seem to become divided very easily. And Joseph is challenging that idea directly. He doesn't want us to hide away who we truly are. He wants us to embrace it, accept it, atone for it, but also accept everyone else and treat them all equally. God damn, is he actually right? Can't be. Surely not. He's crucified people on the roads. He can't be right. But with us now waking up, we have some very bad withdrawals after getting out of the bliss, and being given some drugs to help us deal with the withdrawal symptoms. Upon actually waking up, we are told that someone has gone missing, more specifically Brady. So we can go out and do that mission for the community. But again, doing some more missions, such as blowing up this statue of Joseph on the mountain, retrieving and burning his own book of Joseph, and there's something in the Bible about writing your own Bible, I think, and reaching our next required amount of resistance, we again enter the bliss.
Don't you understand what we're trying to build? Or do you just not care? I watch you run this way and that, inflicting violence on those who wish no harm upon you.
Do we have any right to help break these people free from something that they have chosen to be a part of? Did they choose to be a part of it? That is the question that we should be asking. But if they did, should we break them free of it? Do we have the right to choose what is best for people, just like how society tells us what is best for us? Because again, the Marshal seems to be doing all right. He doesn't seem to be in any sort of pain or suffering. So why should we pull him out and maybe cause him to suffer in his old life? Should we force the Marshal to leave the bliss and go back to a life that he doesn't want to return to because that's the right thing to do? But is it? This is kind of getting to the question of what is the point of life, and do we have a right to control people and tell them what they should be doing? The Marshal basically asks this question, questioning what is the point of life and chasing a life which isn't that fulfilling, doing a job over and over again, the same day, the same role, the same things every single day for the people that don't really care about you, just so you can earn some money to live in some form of happiness if you can achieve that. What's the point of doing all of that when you could just pursue pure happiness here within the cult with bliss? What is the point of all of this? That is a question I have myself had for many years. What is the point of life if we just work for 40 to 50 years and then retire for maybe 20 years if we're lucky, not really doing all that much? We might be able to go to a country we've always dreamed of going to. I still have not had my Sugoi Japan moment yet, but maybe one day that will happen. And maybe we might have a relationship which might bear fruit. But what is actually the point of all of it? What is the point of life? Fuck man, how has Far Cry got me questioning like all this shit? Honestly, I have no clue. No one does. But I think that's the point. Your purpose, your reason is yours. If you want to sit indoors all day playing video games, gooning, you can do that, because if that makes you happy, do it. Unless there's an addiction, because that isn't a good thing. If you want to do charity work and maybe make a difference in the world, go for it. Anything you choose and you believe is important is the reason that I believe we are all here. And I believe most of them all fall eventually into one goal: making the world a better place overall for either yourself or for those that you care about. And for me, that's my reason. That's the reason I ramble. I make all these videos because I want to make the world a better place, even in a small way, by making myself feel more comfortable, being more open and confronting my problems, but also maybe even helping others by letting them maybe learn something from me, from my life, and the messages that I have for people. That's the idea. Is that actually what happens? Probably not. These are just random fucking videos I make talking about video games. Maybe they do make a small difference to some people's lives. And I encourage you all to never feel like other people tell you what your reason is for living. You should always figure it out yourself. Find what you truly value. But if that's true, then should we stop the Marshal from what he's doing? Should we pull him out of the bliss? Do we have any right from stopping him entering Eden? Should we just let him wander into Eden? Well, I mean, would you let a kid stick a fork in a lecky outlet? Probably not. Even though it is kind of fun to do, it's gonna get the kid hurt. But I wouldn't know. I'm young. But I do believe sometimes that people should make calls for other people. Sometimes people make a call to protect others because they know and understand better what is happening, even if that person doesn't want that thing to happen. I'm sure many of you have given advice to friends when they're doing something stupid, or maybe getting themselves in a relationship that you know is going to end very badly. But help itself can be given in many different ways. A simple word, forcing someone to maybe go a different way that they weren't thinking, or maybe just preventing someone from doing something that they were about to do. All I'll say is that some advice for some people doesn't work for everyone. Anyway, with the Marshal walking his way to the gates of Eden, we have to stop him physically, preventing him from reaching the gates and bring him out of the bliss.
You're doing great.
Christ, Tracy, get that syringe over here! Oh, calm down, first. Look at me. Look at me. No, John! No!
Well, he seems alright, don't he? But a sharp-eyed viewers might notice the butterfly flying around the room, maybe telling us that we are still in a dream. But anyway, with us having saved the Marshal, we now need to continue our quest, compelled to completely liberate the Hebane River. Helping out my favourite character, Guy Marvel. Sorry.
Help, Guy Marvel!
But after a lot of action and finally reaching the desired amount of freedom, we again are taken into the bliss.
I don't understand. Did you think you could just continue to do what you wanted without consequences? I've been reasonable, I've been fair. But you were just so selfish. You were someone to leave that didn't want to go. Also, you could be what? A hero?
I guess no good deed goes unpunished, and I guess with the Marshal losing his games of cards,
Straight flush.
he kills the bald man and himself. But the most interesting part here is Faith mentions that arrogance is a hubris against the gods, almost comparing herself and the Seed family as gods. and she knows that we will never willingly give ourselves up over to the bliss, and she has the senator killed and makes the marshal kill himself, almost punishing us for how we are acting, and also almost saying that if she can't have them, then no one can. And with the marshal dead, the Peggies have now started to fully attack the prison, and we have to rush back to save everyone. For fuck's sake, you think these people having all these guns and shit, they would be able to hold off for a bit longer, then instantly collapse as soon as there's any sort of conflict. But as we get there, we now start to infiltrate and fight our way in, playing the role of the hero. Like, I'm not being funny, we kind of have to play the role of the hero, because if we don't, these people would all be killed immediately. But Faith taunts us by telling us and asking if we are truly the hero, and making fun of us for playing said hero, not letting go of the role. But eventually clearing out the prison and saving everyone, we can talk to Tracy, and apparently they have taken the sheriff somewhere else, so we now need to go find him. But Virgil is dead. How sad. It's a shame that this game does try to pull these sad moments, but Ubisoft really should give more time to actually building these characters up and actually making them, you know, characters you care about, and not just random blokes you accept quests from and then they just die halfway through the game. But anyway, heading outside, we again enter the gates of Eden, I think, and Faith now has taken the sheriff and he is completely under her spell as well. And we enter a rather interesting boss fight, which is actually quite challenging on hard. But I guess while this fight is going on, we can talk about Faith and what she's meant to actually represent in the context of the story. Faith is arguably the most tragic character in Far Cry 5, not because she's innocent, she has done bad things, but because she's the clearest example of someone who has failed long before she became the villain that we're facing here. Unlike Jacob and John, who actively embrace Joseph's ideology and reshape it into their own twisted philosophies, Jacob with the call the weak and John with the say yes, Faith feels more like an example of what Eden's Gate is trying to protect. She is more like one of the victims of society. The game hints that before becoming Faith, she was a troubled young woman struggling with addiction, loneliness, and desperate need for belonging. But more importantly, Faith Seed isn't her real name. The title itself is an identity Joseph gives her, suggesting that the person she once was has been completely consumed by the role that she's been forced to play. She herself doesn't matter, it's what she represents. The ability to be cleansed, to be changed, and to gain faith. And that raises an uncomfortable question. How many people like Faith exist in the real world? Not cult leaders, but people who are vulnerable, isolated, and they are desperately searching for some kind of meaning. When most people think about cults, they imagine irrational individuals making irrational choices, spending stupid amounts of money on things that they don't need, abusing their position, and completely manipulating people. That's who they think of when the cult is brought up. But many people don't think about the prey, the ones that they prey on, those who feel abandoned, forgotten, or broken, people who are suffering from addiction, people struggling with mental illness and need to find a way out of it, people with unstable families who are forced away, people who feel like they have nowhere else to go. Faith wasn't pulled into Eden's Gate because she was evil and Joseph picked her to be one of his lieutenants. She was pulled into it because she was made vulnerable and society forced her away. It didn't help her. In that sense, Faith becomes a reflection of a societal failure. We often talk about personal responsibility, but much less about the conditions that create desperation in the first place. What happens when someone falls through every safety net that we have? What happens when they feel completely invisible to their state or the country they were born to? What happens when nobody offers them purpose until someone dangerous comes along that preys on people like that and does what they need? For Faith, Joseph didn't just offer her answers. He offered her an identity, belonging, and a family. As twisted as it still was exactly what she needed. It was something that society never gave her, the feeling that she mattered. That's what makes her relationship with Bliss, in my opinion, incredibly important. On the surface, Bliss is just a simple tool of manipulation, a drug used to control and indoctrinate. But symbolically, however, it's much more than that. Bliss represents an escape. It removes pain, anxiety, trauma, but most importantly, responsibility. It creates a beautiful illusion where nothing hurts anymore. And if that sounds familiar, it's because society is filled with its own forms of bliss. People use things to escape society. Drugs, alcohol, social media, entertainment, consumerism, all these different things that people engage with to escape the issues they have in life. They often serve the same purpose that bliss is fulfilling, but they never actually solve the issue, they numb it. But Bliss is different in that sense, because Bliss is used in tandem with the cult's teaching, bringing people in to completely allow them to escape from their issues. Faith's entire philosophy is built on that idea. She wants to help people come into the cult and completely disconnect from their previous lives, completely abandon it, forget who they once were. But the tragedy within Faith as a character, in my opinion, is she herself seems trapped within the very thing that she is helping to spread. She is always in the bliss. We never see her outside of it. She still is running. Unlike John, who revels in his cruelty and loves doing what he does, with Joseph giving him something to do, or Jacob being given a purpose, Faith is still running from her problems. She often seems conflicted. She's always arguing with the player, arguing if they believe they're the hero, if they believe what they're doing is right. She's always arguing with us, but she never flips the question on herself if what she's doing is right. It feels like she is projecting onto us at times. John and Jacob never really argue with your worldview. They kind of just try to push their own onto you. John with wanting you to accept your sins and be embraced within the cult, and Jacob wanting to turn you into a weapon. But Faith wants you to abandon your past. It's a very different thing. She's not trying to overwrite it, she's trying to make you erase it. And that's exactly what Joseph did to her. He manipulated her and forced her to forget her past, erase her name and join his family. He took away her individuality and made her a person in his own image, someone that he wanted to put faith into. Yes, he did help her, but was it the right reason? Did he do it because he wanted something from her? Is Joseph still manipulating Faith this whole time? And I think that's why her death feels very, very different to the other heralds. Jacob dies standing by his philosophy, believing in the weak must be cold, and now truly believing in what Joseph was saying. John dies refusing to abandon his faith, trying to fly away and escape you before we physically kill him. Faith dies almost questioning her, questioning the player and questioning everything that's happened, questioning why everything had to come to this. She doesn't rage against the deputy. Well, she does, but not in the same way that John and Jacob do. She just seems like a girl that was lost and doesn't really know still where she's going. In her final moments, she just kind of gives up. And I think that's why I really like Faith overall, because she again is a reflection that monsters aren't created overnight. What she is doing is a terrible thing, but she was still created by society. She was created into who she is. She is created when society fails to provide support, belonging, and hope to people when they fall into a void. The tragedy of Faith Seed isn't that she was addicted to drugs or manipulated by Joseph. The tragedy is that she was abandoned by society. She was punished by society for no reason. That's what makes her so tragic. And this is all shown and fully outlined to us within her death scene, and man, she is the one character I felt somewhat bad for and the worst for, because she has just been as manipulated as everyone else. She was once a normal girl who was pushed to the brink, and the only person who did give her any form of kindness was Joseph. And even us, we showed her violence and anger, almost proving to her that Joseph was the only one that would ever accept her for who she truly was. But after that, we have to find and save the sheriff from hanging himself, because that is a no-bueno, and also completely stop the bliss from being produced anymore. And eventually we make shit go kaboom, save the sheriff, now freeing entirely the Habane River from Faith and her bliss. Now returning to the prison, we have now one single objective, and that is to find Joseph and lead the way to eliminate him. And that will be our next objective.
Now, I want you to find that goddamn Joseph Seed, bring him to justice, or put him in the ground. That's an order, Deputy.
Next scene has two scenes, one with Joseph talking about Faith and her past in a more similar way to the ones for Jacob and John, talking about her drug addiction problem and her being adopted into the family at the age of 17. But what happens if this is the last person you eliminate? What if this is the final Seed family member that we kill?
Another seal has been opened. My family, my brothers, my sisters, they've been taken from me! by a snake in the garden! I thought I knew God's plan. But I was wrong. I was blind. But now I see. You took my family from me so that I could have yours. We will welcome them with open arms. Just as we will welcome you. We will be waiting for you. Where it all began.
A snake in the garden, that would be Satan, the devil, and Joseph sees us as that snake, but he still welcomes us with open arms, even wanting to have our family that we have gathered, with him believing the reason he has lost his whole family is so that he can have ours, and we have collected 12 companions throughout the game. Maybe we're Jesus. But now we have no choice left but to go find Joseph Seed at his church, the very place this whole nightmare begun, and this will lead us into the end of the game, and the two endings of the game.
And when the Lamb broke the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of the martyrs, slain because of the word of God. You made martyrs of my family. And I am prepared to do the same to yours. But God is watching us, and He will judge us on what we choose in this moment. I told you that we were living in a world on the brink, where every slight, every injustice, where every choice reveals our sins. And where have those sins led us? Where have those sins led you? Your friends have been taken and tortured, and it's your fault. Countless people have been killed, and it is your fault. The world is on fire, and it's your fault. Was it worth it? Was it? When are you gonna realize that every problem cannot be solved with a bullet? When you first came here, I gave you the choice to walk away. You chose not to. In the face of God, I'm making you that offer one last time. You put down your guns. You take your friends. You leave me my flock. Go in peace.
Go in peace. You're fucking insane.
You see? We never should have been here in the first place.
You know what to do, Rook.
Remember. God is watching.
And we have the choice in front of us to resist Joseph and try to take him in again, or leave well enough alone and just leave. So what should we do? Well, if we choose to leave Joseph, he will embrace us, knowing that we have learned from our so-called sins and the lessons that he has been trying to teach us throughout the game. We are not judging him no more and not condemning him for what he has done. We are choosing to forgive him and let him go. And he will do the same for us, allowing us to leave even after killing all of his brothers and sisters. Now fully becoming one of the members of Eden's cult and truly becoming a member that embodies the teachings he has been spreading. This is much to the disdain of Hudson, but Whitehorse agrees with our choice.
You lost your fucking mind!
Get the goddamn truck! Sometimes it's best to just leave well enough alone.
And we just drive off, leaving all of our friends that we've made throughout the game, as Joseph has now built up his new family. But of course, dipping our toe into this water means that we will never actually truly be able to leave, and with the radio being turned on, a certain song begins to be played, and we cut to black, implying that the sheriffs didn't learn their so-called lesson, with us killing everyone as we went into a hot red rage, as we heard the song that Jacob used to turn us into a killing machine. Okay, so what if we choose to resist him?
Choice reveals our sin. John was wrong. Your sin is not wrath. So you'd rather watch the world suffer and burn than swallow your pride.
And the Lamb broke the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. And the sun became black, and the moon turned to blood.
This leads us into a kind of crazy boss fight as we have huffed a bunch of the bliss, having to free all of our friends and companions from his control, with us eventually breaking the sixth seal. We are getting mighty close to causing the end of the world, as only one remains, and Joseph now sees that wrath is not our sin, but pride. We are too prideful to allow us to side ourselves with someone that we view as scum. Anyway, eventually after a hell of a lot of shooting and reviving and being killed, hey look, 12 allies again, almost like the 12 followers of Jesus, the 12 apostles, we eventually overwhelm Joseph and take him into custody.
Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. And when the Lamb opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven. And the seven angels before God were given seven trumpets. And there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake.
Joseph Seed, you're under arrest.
And I heard a great voice from the temple say to the angels, "Go your ways, and pour from the vials the wrath of God upon the earth."
God damn, that is truly the end of the world. And on good time, as Joseph now states that the seventh seal has been broken.
It is finished, child.
So we now quickly grab Joseph, handcuff him, throw him in the car and grab the crew, and we start driving like a crazy taxi through this fire hellscape, racing back to Dutch's bunker to try survive the nuclear fallout. But just before we make it, of course, damn, I'm getting a bit of deja vu. And now someone drags us into the bunker through the fiery hellscape.
You know what this means? It means the politicians have been silenced. It means the corporations have been erased. It means the world has been cleansed by God's righteous fire. But most of all,
collapse has come. The world as we know it is over. I waited so long. I waited so long for the prophecy that God whispered in my ear to be fulfilled. I prepared my family for this moment. And you took them from me. I should kill you for what you've done. But you're all I have left now. You're my family. And when the world is ready to be born anew, we will step into the light. I am your father. And you are my child. And together we will march to Eden's gate.
And that is the true ending of Far Cry 5. Well, I mean, kind of, I guess, not really. Currently, Far Cry 5 technically didn't happen at all in the Far Cry canon because Far Cry 6 completely retconned all of it. Insert more ending analysis stuff. All right, ending bit now. So what does the ending represent? Well, our actions of not learning and choosing to go against the cult literally represents that eventually, even without the bombs, the world would end. We brought death to all, but we were the ones that broke all the seals, linking us to Christ himself, who is the only one who could open the seals. Now, in real life, I actually do think this would happen if Christ did somehow return and he was real. I definitely see this would happen. I'd see this happening. The world would completely spiral into chaos. There would be war between different religions, ones claiming that he's false, others claiming he's real, and the same thing would happen. The end of the world would come, revelation would come to pass, and the horsemen would ride. But the ending itself, I think, is more meant to reflect many real-life problems of how groups of people will choose to not accept others because of certain problems or certain characteristics or just certain things. And I'm sure you can see where this is going. So is Joseph right? He is the guy that wants everyone to be accepting of others. He wants to welcome everyone into Eden and he wants to protect everyone in Eden. But he doesn't because he wants to cull the herd, and he also tortures a bunch of people and kills loads of people, and not everyone is welcomed into Eden. So is he the savior? No, not exactly. So surely Rook, the player character, is? Well, again, no. Rook wants to save as many people as he can, but only those that he views as friendly, only those that he loves or cares about. He doesn't save any of the cults, he doesn't try to convert any of them at all, he just kills all of them. In the same way, Joseph's men are killing and torturing hundreds of people across the county who don't completely accept the cult. Joseph and Rook, the player character, are two sides of the same coin. They are the same figure for their respective sides. Ones who fight and never give up for their cause, always willing to help those that they deem as needing it or acquiring it. And you could look at both of them as one being Christ and the other one being the Antichrist. You could look at it both ways. Joseph isn't all evil. We know that completely. He is a psycho, yes, but he does have love and a heart within him. Faith is proof of that. He saved her and helped her rebuild herself and find a purpose and a sense of belonging. He gave his two brothers a place to belong and a purpose in life. But not only that, he even pushes John at times to embody love, to follow it and believe in it. Believe that Rook, the player character again, can be changed and can become a part of the cult, even saying to his brother that he will not allow him into Eden if he lets his sin consume him and kills Rook. But the problem is the player character will never accept Joseph unless you pick the resist ending, and it means that there's just this ever escalating conflict. You have two parties who are unwilling to compromise in who they are and what they believe and are unwilling to accept each other, so you slowly get this building conflict that eventually leads to everyone losing. I'm sure there is a current conflict that maybe you can think of in the world that is kind of the same thing, where you have two sides where one believes something and the other believe another thing, and they fight over it for years and years and years, and it just gets worse and worse and worse for both sides. Both are right, but both are also wrong. But right and wrong isn't what this game is about. Actually, after sitting on the game for a while, to me, Far Cry 5 isn't about black and white, or religion and being unfaithful, cults and freedom. It's not even about the end result of the nukes, the end of the world. The point is how human destruction is inevitable. The point of the game is it asks the question, is human destruction inevitable? It's not. What the game wants you to see is that destruction and pain is deep rooted. That these people, Joseph, John, Jacob, and Faith, even some of the characters that we meet along our journey, are members of society. They belong to the same world, but they have been treated in very different ways. Some have been abused, some have been given jobs that they adore and love, and some are allowed to live, and some have been blessed by society. It's all different, but they've all been changed in ways by society. Some are deemed as bad and thrown away and punished for who they became, and others are deemed as good and proper and allowed to continue living in that world. So why do people become so capable of dealing so much pain and damage? How can someone become a man who would willingly kill his own infant daughter? Well, that's what Far Cry 5 wants you to question. What happens when people are hurt, when people suffer, and when they're abandoned by a society that doesn't really care for them anymore, that just wants them to go away quietly? What happens is they lose meaning, and then they search for that meaning. Joseph found meaning within God and his plan to save people and create Eden's Gate. He knew there were others like him, abandoned and abused by the world, and that they needed a place to feel safe and a place that they could belong. But he knew that once he built this place, it would be attacked because it isn't right. All these people are bad people in the eyes of society. Faith is someone that society failed as well. A girl bullied for who she was, pushed towards drugs, only finding and freeing herself of these issues when Joseph gave her guidance. Jacob was molded into a tool for the states, once fulfilling a purpose of being a soldier, now abandoned once they realized there was no need for him anymore. Joseph gave him his purpose back and allowed him to continue doing what he was created to do. John, a man that was only shown violence, will only ever know violence, and during the game itself, we see that. But Joseph tries constantly to make him choose love, to show him love and make him show love. He is doing what society failed to do. Joseph isn't a man who is set on world domination or controlling people. He probably genuinely wants to help and free people from their problems, because he is the only one he knows that's doing it. He knows that if he doesn't do anything, these people won't get the help they need, and they will continue spiraling down into the darkness. And I honestly think that's where I think the ending started to click for me, because I spent so much time thinking about whether Joseph was right. I never really stopped to think about why so many people followed him in the first place. Because if Joseph was some crazy guy screaming about the end of the world, nobody would have joined him, especially not the numbers that did. Not many would have stayed, and nobody would have dedicated their entire lives to him. Yet many did. And that's because Joseph was giving people something they couldn't find anywhere else, a place to belong. And I know that sounds stupid because, again, we're talking about a cult, but when you look at the people around Joseph, they are all searching for something, and this is completely reflected in real life cults. Many of the people that are a part of them, they are either born into it or they are originally people that searched desperately for meaning. They all end up finding their own answers and belonging in Eden's Gate. The problem is, finding an answer doesn't mean it's the right one. Joseph is the embodiment of that. He found an answer to one of God's questions in one of his tests, but was it the right answer? The problem isn't finding an answer, it's finding the right one. And that's why, to me, Far Cry 5 is a story much further beyond just religion. Because if you removed all the Bible references, all the talk about God, the Four Horsemen, and the seals breaking, you'll be left with people who are suffering, who search for meaning and find a place that they belong. But then people try to rip that place away from them. But these people finally found this place, they are unwilling to let it go. And that's what I think the ending truly represents with the bombs. The bombs just happen to be how the story ends. They represent complete destruction entirely of both sides. that's what nuclear war will end with, the entire world falling apart. And that's what Joseph was trying to teach us the entire time, that if we can't accept others for their differences and accept them for that, that eventually everything will just crumble. There will be conflicts that keep escalating, and they will end with both sides losing. History may be written by the victor, but in war, both sides lose. That's what I think the game wants us to think about. Everyone can get lost, everyone can go down the wrong path, life can change people in ways you cannot imagine. Sometimes it's up to the individual to change their path and improve themselves. Sometimes it's up to friends, families, even a stranger helping that person refine their path and changing who they are. But that's the point. People need to find their own meaning. Once you find the answer to that question, people should not be denied of that meaning. They should not be denied of that belonging, and they should not be judged for who they are. Yes, you might disagree with something that they believe, something that they follow, something that they do, but if it isn't harming anyone, if it isn't a big problem, if it isn't causing some massive issue, sometimes it's just best to leave well enough alone and just help and accept one another. Hello lads and lasses, thanks for watching. This video took fucking way longer than I wanted to, but couple issues with this video. When I started this video, I really enjoyed making it. I was having a lot of fun with it. And then I started editing it and actually making the actual video, and I don't know why, for some reason recently I've just been not really feeling the videos. So this video isn't 100% what I want, but I kind of just want to move on from it because I'm just not really enjoying making it. I am happy with it overall, but like I'm definitely feeling a little bit of a burnout on certain things now, especially these kinds of videos. They're just getting too long, and I'm desperately trying to find something different to make and something shorter as well, because my god, I do not want to do this for a while again, have this much footage to deal with. But anyway, let's quickly shout out the channel members. Thank you to all channel members, including Justin Tyler, Gator, Darren76, Itzbert, Carfelos, Corrego, Zarolino, Kento, Paragon Khan, Ashley, Jane Caliber, Jamie Barrett, Juniper LP, Straight Gin, Synapse, Lolink12, Mr. Disappear, Shaku, Yagito, Hassanemi, Yavian Hammond, Corazonto, Tyler Reeves, Saint CL, Camden Shepherd, Zartane FF14, Renegade, Sailor Peach, Seren Soji, Quietest Law, King, Elite 0101, Yato Kazuki, Vracula, Benjamin Schmidt, Hayabusa, Austin Smith, Lol, Not Saber, Damlarat, and Ketchum Soup. Thank you everyone for your support, it is greatly appreciated. But yeah, I've been feeling not inspired by these recent videos. I don't know, been trying to find games that I want to play. I don't know, nothing's really clicking. The next video will probably be Outlast, if I have to assume. I have played the game entirely and its DLCs, and I did enjoy it, but I don't know, I'm just not really feeling anything from these things. I don't know. The initial plan was for me to do Max Payne 2, but I don't want to do Max Payne 2 at the moment because I just don't feel like it. I don't like doing these videos when I don't really want to do them, because I feel like they make for a worse video, like Dishonored 2, that video. Like, I just was not feeling it, and I think that shows. But I just don't really know what games to do. I do want to go back to horror again. I know a lot of people have been asking more Eragay / Black Souls adjacent stuff. I have said I will do things like Loner and the one that keeps getting suggested, the Monster Girl one. I can't remember the name of it. I will do them, but the problem is these long RPGs, they take so long to do. And of course, I like to be more, I guess, ambitious with them. But unfortunately, I haven't really been able to put the time into these videos that I'd like to, mainly due to work, and recently it being way too fucking hot, so it's been way too difficult to actually sit down and edit because I just can't focus. But I don't know, I think I'm approaching the point now where I really do need to actually think about finding someone to help make the videos, because they're just getting too big now for me to handle, especially with me still working. It's just, I feel like I just don't have the time, and I'm always rushing them, and I'm putting them out before I feel like they're actually good enough, and I'm just not good enough at editing to make these videos good. But I actually need to find someone who is experienced at editing and is actually good at editing. I've had people reach out to me before, but when your experience is a month of using an editing software and you don't really understand what I'm after, there's a problem with that. Like, I need someone that can actually improve the videos, not just make the same style of videos that I can make. So if anyone out there is a very experienced editor who can make some fun stuff, send me your stuff, please. I'd love to see it, and I'd love to be able to pull from my community, help someone out, pay someone from my community to help me do this work. That's kind of the idea. I mean, I still haven't found a thumbnail artist because I don't know what to do with them anymore. Other than that, suggestions would be very welcome from people at the moment, because I really don't know what games to do next. I was planning on playing Metro, the first Metro game, Metro 2033, mainly because I've always wanted to play the series. I've never actually played it before, but of course I still do want to do all the Remedy games, so Max Payne 2, then eventually move on to like Alan Wake, Control and all that. I do also want to do Dying Light 2 and like the Dead Island games, because I love those games and I feel like I do have a lot to add to them. Prey as well is a game I want to do eventually. Probably won't do any Resident Evil games for a while. I don't know. I'm kind of struggling. So yeah, genuinely, I would appreciate some suggestions, because I don't know. I genuinely don't know what to fucking do anymore. Like, I don't know what games I want to do because I'm not really feeling anything from any of them at the moment. So if some suggestions, if so you see someone suggest the suggestion you want in the comments, like it and then maybe reply to it. Whatever gets the most suggestions, I'll do a poll maybe on my Discord server or on YouTube posts for it to be picked if there's a few that I like the sound of. Hopefully I'm not getting burnt out. It has been 2 years now of me doing this straight constantly every day. Hope I'm not getting burnt out, but fuck it, we go through it. Anyway, that's enough waffling from me. See you around. Crocodile.